Today is Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020. This is a meeting of the Acushnet Board of Selectmen. Could I ask all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we've got 3 sets of minutes to be approved on the agenda, August 13th, May 21st, and October 8th. I've raised to Ms. Hebert some issues, some questions, some points that need clarification in the minutes of August 13th and May 21st. So rather than try to go through them now with the group, I'd like to hold them, discuss them with Ms. Leonard, and bring them back for approval. I'm all set with the October 8th minutes, if you are.
Motion to approve the October 8, 2019 regular session minutes.
And I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to bring to the board's attention that it looks like the restricted music license for JT's has expired. We did a 3-month trial. So with that said, we just asked Ms. Hebert to check with the police chief and the fire chief and make sure there hasn't been no complaints, because that was one of the concerns on that license. And if not, we'd have to bring it back forward to revote it for the remainder of the year.
Yep. And just one comment regarding the minutes. It's something I've been discussing with Ms. Hebert, that I'm happy to see we've got 3 sets of minutes on the agenda, but we've fallen a bit behind in getting minutes out. So I've asked Ms. Hebert and Ms. Leonard to deal with minutes. And I don't know what's outstanding, but to deal with minutes, and I want to see at least 2 sets of minutes for every meeting until everything that's in our backlog is done. We really need minutes. We get minutes on here for May 21st. That shouldn't be. That shouldn't be. So these need to be caught up ASAP. Meeting mail, we have none. Appointments. Item 1 we've got listed as budget meetings, but I'd like to bring Mr. Bernstein from Kearsarge, this is Kearsarge PPA, to discuss the possibility of the town of Acushnet buying energy through his company from solar arrays. Right. And Mr. Mara's here as well. Mr. Mara's been involved in past opportunities to do this, so please, Mr. Mara, jump in when you see anything you want to talk about.
Yep.
Please.
So, thank you for inviting me. The chairman asked me to make this short and sweet. So,
Speak in a language that we understand,
Sure.
please.
So, the opportunity right now is under an older incentive program called net metering, and it was originally set up in 2008. And in this part of the utility zone in Eversource East, there's still some cap left. In the rest of the state, Eversource West, National Grid, it's been completely full for 8 months. So the opportunity then is pretty simple. Kearsarge, we've done about 100 megawatts of projects. Most of them have been net metering. In Massachusetts, there's a new incentive program called SMART, where any of the off-takers, if you will, the people who are buying the energy, the benefits to the developers and the people who buy the energy are much smaller. So this is the opportunity right now. So there's 2 opportunities that we can present. So if you go to the project description, we have a project located in Acushnet off Middle Road. The project is operational. We have the opportunity, we have several off-takers in it now: New Bedford Vocational School, Hopkinton Public Schools, Millis. Millis is right now, they have indicated to us that they're not going to take as much as they thought. And they're going to try to build their own array. It's a long story, but so we have the opportunity for the Acushnet project. The Acushnet project is now live. So if the town were to go ahead with that, you would get credits that have already built up from about 3 weeks ago. So you would get those credits right on your bill. The second project is located at New Bedford Industrial Park. That is supposed to be operational in August 2020. So we could get another off-taker to fill out the Acushnet, but I'd much rather, given some history here, give the whole thing to Acushnet. So that's the status. So the way this works is net metering credits are a monetary value that are put on the bill. So the town would say, here are the 5 bills that I want you to apply credits. And each month, you would get, whatever percent you would say, you would get a credit on your bill for the full amount. So the net metering rate right now is about, it's a little over, it's about 17.5 cents. So what would happen is if the town bought 100,000 kilowatt hours, they would get on their bill 100,000 kilowatt hours annually times 17 cents. So that would be $17,500. And it would be divided by the months tied to the output of the facility. So we can just assume that it were even. So you would get the credit on your bill for 100% of it, and then Kearsarge would bill you for 85%. So the way the program works is you're never out money, and the way we're offering, I'll go into details, is we don't require any floor price. So it's guaranteed savings. So whatever the net metering rate is, you'll get a 15% savings of that.
I'm confused though.
Okay.
So there's a market rate for electric. Are you guaranteeing our price is 17.5 cents, or are you?
So the net metering rate is set by Eversource.
Okay.
It's gone up historically about 3.3%. And it consists of the energy, the supply charge, the distribution charge, and the transmission charge. So it consists of almost 96% of your retail rate.
So are you saying we're buying at 17.5%, or are you taking the rate that we pay to Eversource and discounting that back?
So
by
Eversource
15%?
sets the net metering rate.
Yep.
So whatever that net metering rate is, right now it's 70.5 cents.
Yep.
You would get a monetary credit on your bill. So if you bought, in this case, I have actual numbers working with Jim, what I'm suggesting. So you would get the amount that you would buy. So the town uses about 1,450,000, 1,500,000 kilowatt hours annually. Jim and I, looking at it, have suggested, and most towns and cities and public municipalities, you don't want to buy too much because you don't want to be over. So the number most people buy is 85 or 90%. So what we're suggesting is that the town buy what's left at the Acushnet would be 800,000 kilowatt hours. So that would be well below your limit.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Gasper.
You just mentioned an 800,000 number. That's your excess capacity on your site?
On Acushnet, that's what we have available at Acushnet.
Right now, currently?
Currently, right now,
800,000.
800,000. So
that's
kilowatt
just
hours
over half
capacity.
I need.
800,000 kilowatt hours annually. Correct.
Which is about 55% of our total usage
Correct.
over a year. Okay.
Excuse me.
And so
So
if we bought 800,000 kilowatt hours from you,
what would
times
happen
the
is,
17.5, that becomes the
Right,
discount
so-
for our electric bill.
so if you go, we'll get into numbers in a second, but what will happen is you'll get a credit from Eversource that put on your bill every month. So you get 100% of the value of the net metering credits. And then you would basically keep 15%, and we would bill you for 85%.
So if our overall, what you're saying is on the 800,000 times the 17.5 cents, let's pretend that equals 100,000 bucks. Let's pretend, right?
So if we go to, if you turn the page, I had put actual numbers in.
What's the page number? Page
So go to
7?
page 8.
Last page.
8.
Well,
Which one are you looking at?
7 and 8.
These same ones?
So this one, so you'll see on page 8, year 1, it says 800,000
Yeah.
kilowatt hours, which we allocated to Acushnet. You see that? Okay?
Yep.
The net metered rate is 17.5 cents. The Acushnet price would be,
85% of that.
right. So basically, the savings would be 2.6 cents. So the annual savings in the first year from that would be 21,000, and then the final column is what it would be projected. The going market rate right now, we have people between 10 to 15% on this project. Depends on the length of the term, the credit, other issues like that.
It's like a 20-year commitment.
The 20-year commitment. But the nice thing about this is the net metered rate, we're expecting it to escalate at 3%, which is historical averages. The output from the facility, the 800,000, you'll notice that goes down because the facility degrades 0.5% per year. So you get more room.
So I just trying to understand the funds flow here. So you've got this facility, you built it, you
Right.
developed it, you own the solar panel.
Right.
And you've agreed to sell the electricity to Eversource at a price?
So what happens is there's two things. What you're asking is the electrons go back on the grid. What we're doing is we're selling the paper credits that are generated by the output. So it's a dollar figure. So if the facility, which is 2.6, generates 3.5 million kilowatt hours, rough and tough in the first year, we're selling that tied to the actual month. We're estimated.
It's you said 1.5 kilowatt hours annually coming out of Acushnet, right? No.
Correct. So we're talking about two different things, the project. So Acushnet uses, for this building and your
Oh, we
schools and
use
everything else,
1.5,
you use
that's right.
1.5 million kilowatt
Right,
hours.
okay,
Yeah.
kilowatt hours.
Yeah,
Right.
kilowatt hours, I got that.
Right. So that's what your
That
usage,
project generates 3.5 million.
rough and tough. So if you said I wanted to buy 800,000, obviously the greatest output is when there's the most sunlight, May through September. So let's say we'll make numbers easy, 100,000 kilowatt hours, going back to the other number, in July, then you would get a credit on your bill at the end of July for 100,000 times the net metered rate. Let's say it's 17.5 cents, so $17,500. We would bill you for 85% of that, and you keep 15%.
Can I tell you the piece I need, just, and you can do this, but you don't
Sure.
have to do it right now, but just something that shows how the money flows between the parties, and I think there's three parties, there's you, there's Eversource, and there's us.
Right.
And just help me
I have
understand,
a flow chart, so it's pretty
Yeah.
easy. What happens
easy
is...
for you.
Right,
My
but what
brain's
happens
bleeding
is
right now.
you will see on your bill a credit from Eversource. So you'll get a credit from Eversource. We'll then look at the bill, and then we'll bill you for 85% of that.
Okay.
So you get the money before we ever bill you, so you're never out any cash.
I mean, conceptually, I love this idea. I love the fact that we've got a solar array in Acushnet, and that we're sort of kind of buying electricity produced in Acushnet. I know it goes off into the grid, and we're, not buying exactly that electron, but
Right.
we're committing to electricity generated. I love the concept. I just want to make sure I understand, and what would be helpful, that funds flow chart.
I can show you
Helpful
that,
to
sure,
me.
sure.
And that can come after this meeting, sir.
So if you go back to page 7, so you may only want to do what I'm suggesting for Acushnet, but
Oh, they did.
to buy from the New Bedford facility, the other 500,000, which would bring you up to 1.3 million in total, I showed you what the numbers would be in total. So it would be 814,000 over 20 years estimated, 1,088,000 over 25, and this program can go on forever.
Is the 1.5, when you say we use 1.5 million kilowatt hours annually,
Right,
we're hopefully, we're changing all the lights, hopefully that's going down, we're getting more efficient.
right.
It feels like at 1.3, we're getting pretty close to our capacity. What's the rule of thumb for how close we should be?
Most towns, and we've done 45 of these, yeah, 85, 90%.
So
But
1.3
but
or
remember,
1.5.
that's only in the first year because our facility degrades.
Degrades.
So we're going down as well, so it gives you more room.
Hmm.
So if you started with 800,000 that you're buying, by the 20th year, you're down to 727. So you're down 10%
Let's
anyhow.
try to go to Mr. Merritt has a question.
As our green community, we monitor all of our electrical costs through Mass Energy Insight. So the figure that we're using at 1.45 is actually one of the most recent numbers that we have, given all the changes that we've already made. So it's not like we're gonna make a lot of changes electrically to reduce that number a lot, so.
So where are you comfortable at as a percentage? Do you agree with the 75-80% assessment?
Yes.
Is that,
I think that's perfect.
all right?
So
It's
you could,
basically, this is basically a 15% savings off the rate, is all this is. So
Right.
wherever our bills are at, we can have Jim give us all copies of our bills, take 15% off, and that's what we save. Let me ask you a
well,
question.
you're getting, actually, it's better than that, because you're getting the net metered rate. Because your price of your bills, you might use someone else for supply now, so the supply price might be less. So your bills, you're probably not paying 17.5 cents per kilowatt hour for your facilities, because you're buying from alternative
Right,
supplies.
so you're saying that this 17.5 cents is everything all built in, distribution, and...
That's the way the program
and-
works.
and, what do they call it, supplier charge, or something like that?
Supply, transmission, distribution, exactly. So that rate is legislated by the DPU.
Right now, we get two bills, because we're part of an aggregation.
Right.
So we get two bills, one's distribution and one's
Generation. Yeah.
right? So if I take those two bills, combine them, divide it by my kilowatt hours, I'll know what I'm paying per kilowatt hour.
Correct,
At
exactly.
home, I'm
Is-
paying 22.5 cents per kilowatt
Is
hour.
that what- is that what
22.5
you're
at
doing
home.
right
Yeah,
I
don't
was
ask
gonna
me
say,
how I
so
know that.
what,
Right.
you know
So
what ours is
retail-
from the
So
town?
retail is more
It's right around
expensive.
22.
Is it right around that
Right,
23 cents? So it's not really just the 15% savings from the 17.5, it's the 15% savings plus the spread between the 17.5 and 23 cents. Does that make sense too?
Yes.
So there's an additional savings, right?
Right.
No, I don't think so.
How not? If I'm paying 23 cents flat rate right now, and I'm paying 17.5 cents right now, and you're saying all my costs are bundled in at 17.5, the spread between 17.5 cents and 23 cents,
Because you're getting $1 credit on your bill.
On a percentage
That's gonna
of
be
70.
17.5 cents times the amount of kilowatt hours. So if we go back to the example, if it's 100,000 kilowatt hours in a month, you would get a $17,500 credit on your bill. You would keep 15% of it, we would bill you for 85. So the spread, it doesn't really matter what you're paying, because you're getting $1 value.
it doesn't matter what I'm paying if we make the agreement with you getting the 17.5
Right.
cents. Well, I'm actually making a better case for you than what you think I am. What I'm saying is if we're currently paying 23.5 cents per kilowatt hour, all in.
Right.
And you're coming to me and saying, hey, you know what, we're gonna sell you 800,000 kilowatt hours for 17.5 cents. That's basically what you're saying to us, isn't it?
I'm saying that I'm selling you 800,000 kilowatt hours for 15% of 17.5 cents. So you're getting 2.6 cents times $100,000, or that
Credit on our
$26,000
We're
credit.
still paying $23, 23
Right,
cents.
so I know you're trying to make a better case.
Oh, you're not, all right, so you're deriving off of what our current dollar value is.
I'm not touching your current dollar value. The net metered rate is set by Eversource. That's 17.5 cents, and it's been slowly going up.
Get me that funds,
confused.
that,
I'm still-
that
still
funds
confused.
flow thing I'm talking about, I
Still
think is gonna be
confused,
helpful.
man.
Because
So-
that's gonna show us paying 23 cents to
Right.
Eversource, and
I mean, it's gotta, I mean, there's
Well-
something that's not making sense here.
Well, because you're getting $1 credit. So you could pay Eversource, let's just make up a number. Let's say you paid Eversource $50,000 in January for all your bills. The credit from Kearsarge would still be the 17.5 cents times the amount of hours you buy from us for that month. So if it were 100,000 for that month, you would still get that credit, and you would keep 15% of it and bill us for 85%. So the dollar amount that you're paying, whether you're paying 50,000 one month or 40,000 one month, you're getting $1 credit. It doesn't matter what you're paying. So then the nice thing about this program is you could find a great supplier who lowers your cost, you still get the credit. So if you look at what the credit is as a percentage of your bill, which you might be saying, so let's say the dollar credit, I'll make up numbers, was 10,000 and your bill was 50,000, then you're saving 20% that month. If your bill was 40,000 you're still getting that $10,000 credit, and if your bill is $80,000, per your example, you're paying 23 cents, it's a smaller percentage you're saving from it. But so their incentive is for a town, and it works both public and private, to get the best possible supply price. Because the transmission and distribution price, you have no choice. You have to pay Eversource for. That's how they make money.
Even with this program?
Even with this program, you're still gonna pay Eversource for the transmission and distribution piece.
Oh, I thought you said that was all added in for the 17.5 cents.
That's how the credit is determined. The credit is determined by by what the pieces are put together. So if you think of it, it's $1 credit. So you're going in, and each month, you're getting $1 credit from what the net metered price is, which is determined by those three components, as you pointed out, times the percentage that we give you.
Conceptually,
So I
I'm
confused you.
you have.
Okay, good.
Funds,
Yep.
funds, the funds
right.
flow thing, I think will be helpful. I
Right.
think conceptually, we love when I say we, I mean me, love the idea of buying green energy, love the idea of buying green energy produced in Acushnet. I just want to understand how the funds move back and forth
Sure.
between us and you and Eversource. And
Sure.
Mr. Merritt, anything to add on?
Well, one quick question, I mean, Andrew, if Kearsarge sets the price, what's to say they don't change the price in the future, or is this?
The net metered price.
Yeah.
So the net metered price is set by Eversource as a combination of what their supply price is, what their transmission, and what their distribution price.
And that's regulated. I
And that's
think.
regulated, but it's gone up 3% per year for the last 10 years, 3.2%.
So we locked in at 17.5 forever?
No, going up. Now,
But
the
it'll
thing
go
is,
up with market.
it could go down, let's say it goes down to 15 cents, the town has no risk, because you're still getting 15%. You're getting a smaller savings for sure, but you're never underwater with these programs. So the other way to do it is you say, I want to buy from you at a set price. And most of our public partners never do that, because there could be a case where you could be underwater.
It's cheaper. Yeah.
Let's say you said, hey, Andrew, I'm going to buy from you at 15 cents for 20 years. There could be another 2009 where the market tanks, or a virus comes and prices drop down, and it could be that year that it's 14 cents, and then you'd be underwater. With this, and we don't need any minimum, you always are guaranteed savings. So that's why, and we've done 39 of these from Duxbury, you name it, Grafton, Franklin, all sorts of different towns. Why everyone likes this program, because of the point that Mr. Gasper is making, you always get a savings. The question is just how much is your savings? So, and the way the flow of funds work, and I'll show you, is you get the dollars first, and then we bill you. So you're never out of pocket for money. And there's 2 meters, so you'll get a bill, and it'll say on it, 80,000 kilowatt hours worth I'm making up numbers, $20,000, and then we'll send you a bill which will say $80,000, 80,000 kilowatt hours, $20,000 times 85%. So you've got the cash, and it's put on your bill, and then you tell us which facilities you want it accrued to. I want 40% of the credits here, 50% here, I want it for the schools, whatever you want.
Are we taking any credit risk with Kearsarge?
No, so the risk that you could be taking is, okay, so the other
I'm sure
thing.
you're Fortune 500
Right.
company and
Yeah,
AAA rated
right.
and all that.
Well,
but-
so a couple things. One, we in our contract, this is our standard contract we do with everyone, we guarantee a certain amount. So let's say it's a terrible year, there's not a lot of clouds, we still will be paying you a guaranteed amount that's in the contract, which is 85% of the numbers in the past. So you're guaranteed the savings from us. So the credit risk is, sure, can Kearsarge go out of business? But on the facilities that we have, for example, Acushnet, we have bank debt. So if we went out of business, the bank steps in, and we have 10-year bank debt. So then they'll operate it, because these facilities are like building a building. All your costs are up front, and we don't see return till about 5 or 6 years as part of it. But we have now, from Kearsarge's perspective, we have over 100 megawatts we're running We're one of the largest providers. We're certainly not a Fortune 100 company or anything like that, but we have about 40 million in revenues. So we're a strong corporation. And the thing is, we sign power purchase agreements with towns who have good credit. So we don't sign with private, so we don't have a lot of risk from that perspective. But we also have partners who come in and they can't allow the facility to go under, they'll step in. But we own everything, we don't sell them, we own everything, and we haven't had a problem with anyone. So you could call credit checks too.
You just said you don't sell any. If you were to sell one, it's written in the contract where the town would be protected, right? That contract would fall
Correct.
to. So say you sold this solar field to Eversource.
They have to honor the contract
That's right.
or it can't go
Unless
through.
they have the right to come to the board and try to renegotiate, but we're not committed to
No,
renegotiate.
they don't even have the right to renegotiate. The contract goes with it, and it's an obligation of the facility. We can't sell it if they don't accept the contract.
Okay.
So the one thing, when this sounds too good to be true, towns will say, okay, it sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? You're signing up for 20 years. That's your
We
catch?
looked at the
Right.
last transaction we were considering,
Right, and you want to make sure that you don't buy too much, because some towns signed up for 100%.
And that fell apart.
Yeah, it's in the minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
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 some
I
towns,
think we've got a proposed contract perhaps already?
I sent one to Julie, and the contract is exactly the same one we signed with other towns. We haven't changed it, and with schools, so there's no
You need to
changes.
change it. We need a better rate than everybody else.
You are getting a better rate. So New Bedford, Voc, and this is all public, they're at 11.5% off. And we had negotiated that, but you already had an offer at 15%. And
We
your
did.
chairman said,
Right.
I'll consider it, but I want the same rate. So I said,
Well, you're
look,
making me look better than I really am.
no, but
We
but
did,
the
we
reason
did.
why
We had
is
15% was the last.
I have
Yeah, it was.
to, I have to get this done pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
We were
facility,
actually told it was 20%, and then they reneged on that and went to 15%.
so just as an aside, in the old days of the SREC program, the earlier program, you could have seen 25 and 30% discounts.
We had to be the sponsoring community or something.
You had to be the host.
And we didn't want to do that.
You don't have to be the host here at all, because if you do the host, that is different requirements. The host causes some issues with net metering, but you don't need to be the host or anything like that. We've already got a host, we're all set.
So let's, Mr. Merritt, let's review the contract and let's,
Get that flow chart?
yeah, get the flow chart.
Yeah,
Flow chart.
flow
Okay, please.
And then
Right.
the one thing is you have to move pretty quickly, because I've got to close this one out.
Well, when you
And
say
if you
pretty
want-
quickly,
What's pretty quickly mean?
what's pretty quickly?
We probably need to get this done in the next month.
Okay.
Have a
fine.
contract signed.
Just get us the flow charts.
Great.
And the contract, I'm sure we've looked at the contract, we'll get that to Copeland and Page. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could just, Jim, if you could work with them and get a sample of one of our bills, use the school department, it's the largest one,
Yeah.
electric bill, with
Yeah,
all
I
of
mean, I can give him a graph of every town we have.
I like just for the school department, because I know they're the largest energy user, if you can get just a copy of the bill, distribution charge, generation charge, what it is on a monthly basis, grab one of their largest months, obviously it'd be a winter month because they're not there in the summertime, and then have them do something with that as far as what this month would look like. This is what this month looked like under the Eversource plan, this is what it's gonna
Sure.
look like under the
I can do
Kearsarge
that.
plan, and I think the board will be able to identify that a lot easier and trying to extrapolate the formulas that everybody's using. If you give us an actual bill and saying this is what it would be under the Kearsarge plan, we'll have something.
That's,
I
we do
agree.
that, we do that, everyone asks for that, that's pretty easy.
All right.
But one thing I would suggest is, with your supply, I'll look at the numbers, you might want to have, whoever you use for supply, you might want to have it be consolidated into one bill from Eversource. Doesn't cost you anything more, but in that way, you have all of your dollar credits on one
Could we
bill.
do that? We got multiple budgets,
We just split them up.
Yeah, I mean, each individual facility will have its own bill, but I'm saying the supply piece and the T&D piece should be on the same bill for the
Jim,
schools.
Can I ask Mr. Aaron
Yeah.
another question?
Sure.
Jim, before you leave on this, I know we're trying to wrap this up, before you leave, what does the school use in a calendar year for energy as far as this 1.45 million kilowatts?
I mean, I can get that information, I don't have it with me right now.
We don't know roughly.
How many students are in your school?
1,200, I don't know why that number's in my head, but.
Off the top of my head, I bet your school uses 800 800 to 850,000.
Well, Mike, if we look at the school and they are 800 kilowatts per hour, then why don't we just apply, if we were to engage in this contract with Kearsarge, we just apply it all to the school department? Why confuse things?
Right.
I mean, that's your choice. You pick
You know what I
well,
mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it
You
doesn't
can
make
choose-
sense to remerging bills and changing this and changing that. If we know, when we don't, nobody says we have to do 75, 85%, we can do 60%. Because maybe in a year from now, somebody else is gonna come to us with a better deal and we're gonna be out of capacity, we can't buy anymore. So I'd be reluctant to go up to 85 or 90%, but if we can capture that 800,000, maybe 50 or 60% in the school, whatever the school department uses, let's go after that.
Right. Well, so you also have the other project, if you wanted to do more, our New Bedford project, you could do a second, it would be a separate agreement, but that one you don't have to rush on at all. So this one, you can make a
Go with the
decision.
Mr. Cinerizio's here from the planning board, he's probably got 2 or 3 different solar farms being looked at, right, 5 being looked at right now.
So what's interesting is that the other 5, they're gonna be under a different program. They're gonna be under the SMART program. And the SMART program, the discounts, instead of seeing 2.6 cents, because we have SMART projects, you probably see about 3/4 to 1 cent because of the way the program works. So it's very different
Yeah, we don't do
economics.
any more, I don't know, Jim, figure it out with them, right? Get the school department, let the board
Great.
contemplate with the school
Yeah.
department, total consumption of the school department, you know, you use an average of 3 years, this is what it is, it's roughly 800,000, maybe we make that deal and purchase the 800,000 excess capacity you have here, and we're done.
So, and the other thing is, every 6 months you could change. So if you did it with the schools and you wanted to say, I'd rather have it on town hall or something like that, you can change.
The savings is a savings, it's all coming from the same
If
pot of
it's the
gold.
same, if it's the same budget, just depends how you
It's the
do
same pot of
budgets.
gold,
Yeah, that's fine.
it's all out of taxpayer dollars.
So I can do that.
Yeah,
Great,
and
okay.
we have the historical
Mr.
data
Bernstein,
going
thank
back, you know,
Very good.
5, 6
Thank you, we'll
years.
be in
so-
touch.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we used 2 under appointments, so item 1 under appointments is budget meetings. First up, we have board of assessors. Ms. Foster's here. Mr. Centerezio, welcome. And I know we've got a reserve fund transfer for you as well tonight, so
Do you want to discuss that first?
welcome.
Thank you for having me. Do you want to discuss the reserve fund transfer first?
Sure.
Okay.
So I gotta find the budget, so let's kill time doing that, because I don't know what that was.
Reserve fund transfer, right? You're looking for can I take this?
Yeah, go take it, run.
You're looking for $1,675 to be transferred to the list of line item 530300,
Yes, sir.
and you have a negative balance right now.
We do.
Okay. And it's a contract obligation with Patriot Properties for cyclical inspections, data entry services, more than line item was appropriated for. So final contract was signed after May 2019, meaning voting approval of the fiscal 2020 budget. I make a motion to approve the reserve fund transfer in the amount of $1,675.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes, thank you. I mean, quickly, your, Board of Assessors presents your budget, approves your budget, but I think it's helpful, we've got an audience to present that to the town. If there are things in your budget you want to talk about to help us understand any of the moving pieces or any things that you want to highlight.
Certainly. It was my understanding I was invited here in front of the Board of Selectmen in regards to, obviously, the bigger changes of the request of the budget from 20 to 21. Do you have my budget breakdown for the board?
I found it, yes,
Awesome.
I got it, thank you.
Okay. Obviously, the beginning, which is the salaries, are just going up by contract or what was told to us for cost of living for the contractual employees. I brought down the salary overtime line item by $200, only because with the Tuesday nights being open and our meetings being scheduled at that time, there really wasn't a need for that much funding for
It
that
looks like
line
it's
item.
flat, actually.
It's flat.
It's flat,
Oh, no.
it didn't change.
No, overtime, 20 appropriated $1,200.
And
Right?
we've got 1,200 for 21.
I have, well, 1,000.
Okay.
Oh,
My
this
request
is
was
correct.
1,000.
Yeah, but you're assuming that those hours will continue for eternity, right? So I
That
would-
is under the presumption, correct, that the evening hours will continue. I know the selectmen are going to revisit that, I believe, in the fall of this year.
Yeah, somewhere around there, August, September. So I mean, it's $200,
be
Kelly.
honest with you,
I would
it's
advise
incidental.
throwing it back in there and just leaving it.
That's not an
That's
issue?
my advice. I mean, if you don't use it, it goes back to the general fund. It's not a big deal.
That's not
It's
an issue.
$200, it's not 20 grand.
We're showing 12, the version we got shows
Yeah,
1,200. so-
1,200.
I
And
apologize.
your call
Sorry.
with your board, certainly.
The triennial certification of the $28,000 that was appropriated at town meeting for FY20 is down to 26. Our contractual obligation is 25,000 in actuality.
So our budget's not reflecting what your budget
Yeah, we're
is.
showing
Right.
25,000.
There's $1,000. It's okay. I mean,
I'm
it's
sorry.
it's okay for what we're doing right now. It's not like we're talking exorbitant money. Your
Alright.
board is making the corrections as long as it's, you're showing us a budget. As long as your budget doesn't show $30,000 up from what we were presented, I mean, I don't think I got a problem with it anyway. And 3 members of the Board of Assessors, I think, do a great job, so.
Okay.
Alright.
And the budget.
The budget, obviously, the budget line item for what we call management consulting, the request last year was $5,000. This year, we're asking for the $12,500. That again would be the change of how we're approaching the cyclical inspection requirement by the Department of Revenue. Basically, it would be, let me get my train of thought. Basically, it would be, instead of, I used to hire appraisers on a fee, basically self-employed, and they'd go out and charge $25 per card and go out and do the inspection, boots on the ground. They'd come back, give me the information, and I'd have to input it. Patriot Properties offered me a contract where they would fulfill the obligation of 500 parcels per year for the $25 per parcel fee, but also input the data. So it's basically a win-win situation. I'm meeting my criteria for the Department of Revenue, and the contractual obligation actually makes the project or the information getting gathered go from A to Z, collected and input for growth or change or basically accuracy purposes. So that was my
It's
request.
a triannual certification?
No,
What's
this
the
line item is, I apologize, for management consulting, 530300. That was a big change in my budget,
5,000?
Management consulting.
5,000 to 12,500.
Well, I don't know.
We got a
We got
real,
$5 grand, $5 grand. Now we're talking numbers, $7,500 bucks.
I'm gonna
This
print
is
one
all
up for the
incorrect.
printer for you guys.
Do you have
how
her
I-
numbers? Do you have her numbers?
Sorry, Kelly.
No.
We don't
No.
have.
Yeah, I'll let you guys share mine.
Do you have a good version?
Yep.
I'm gonna print them, let's see.
Or just email it?
Yeah, see, this one's just.
What's the camera license fee? What is that?
That's a licensing fee we have to give to Patriot Properties for their software
That's
use.
Patriot also.
That's also a canned number, once we get to the contract, that changes annually, that's set by them.
I think we've got an older version of your budget.
Okay, no worries.
So we're not, that's all right. So you just talked about the management consultant line item?
Do you want me to go over that again, because I threw you for a loop for asking the
Well, we
additional
don't have,
$7,000?
we don't have correct budgets.
That's okay.
So it's a little difficult for
no
us to
worries.
speak on your budget if I'm looking at numbers that are different from yours, $7,500 here. I mean, $200, we weren't concerned. It's starting to get our attention now at $7,500.
Absolutely.
What's your bottom line, Ms. Costa?
177.
177348.
Yeah, I've got 169,048, so it's up 4,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
up 4.9%.
So that line item is,
177,022.
the percent increase is 150% if you look through the far right
What's your
column.
bottom line?
What's your
The
bottom line?
bottom, 177348?
Yeah, this one's not right either, Julie.
Yeah.
That's all right, it's close.
It's close.
So we can,
No, yeah.
we've got 177,022, we're close enough.
All right.
Really? Wow.
That's all right.
There you go. I'll give you this. I'll give
Do you
this
have
one back.
1777348?
I'll take that one. I want you gentlemen to be happy.
Should
You
have
have
just
the
taken
correct
that
one,
one and made
right,
copies.
Yes.
Okay,
So anyways, it's all right.
anyway,
This one's gonna be pretty close, we're only a few $100 off.
There's a modest increase in most.
Right, the biggest change in the overall budget of the assessors that I presented to the finance committee is definitely the management consulting line item, which I've spoken to in regards to, instead of my historically hiring an appraiser self-employed to go out and do boots on the ground, they'd collect the data, come back, and I'd have to input it for $25 per parcel. Patriots offered me a contract where the $25 per parcel, they would commit to 500 parcels per year, and also not just collect the data, boots on the ground, but input it in the system, so it would go from A to Z and be completed for that same fee.
That's the camera?
Yes. So I think that's why it's so much more cost effective. It is larger, but we're actually keeping up with the commitment in the 10-year process. The town has approximately 4,800 parcels, therefore that 500 number for the 10 years, 5,000.
Weren't you considering bringing in a specialist to look at some of the unique properties in town as well?
I am, that's an article, that's
an
on my
article.
budget.
Okay, we haven't seen ours yet. Okay.
I am. And then, do you have any, I'm sorry, before I continue?
No.
Okay,
Well,
and furthermore,
Chairman.
the rest of the budget was level funded, except for the licensing fee, which again is set by Patriot Properties annually for the use of their software.
Got some questions up here.
Just back to that managing consultant.
Yep.
So are we gonna have more properties appraised by going with the,
Yeah, by, the math would be, before when I had the 5,000,
Right.
obviously I would get only 200 done. With the 12.5, I'm gonna get 500 done, but they're going to actually input the data. What was happening is, they'd come back with the data and I would input it, but
Right.
it would kind of be like from my A to B list, it'd definitely be on my B list to do because I have pressing matters at hand. That's kind of work that we have, that's busy work.
right,
And what happens is, when it gets waylaid, the town in essence loses money. The value, we can have growth that was not captured at one point, or obviously to keep up with the accuracy of our assessments, and that's what our mission statement technically is, so.
so at 5,000, we were getting 200 units appraised for our properties. So.
So for
And you
12.5,
had to input the numbers. So at
Correct.
12.5, they're gonna do
500, committed
units.
500, and
And
actually put in the data.
Okay.
So we take a little bit from your salaries and knock those down for less work?
Maybe you can take it from the admin salary, but not mine.
How often do you get into a property and look at the property? How often is that supposed to happen?
That's supposed to happen in a perfect world by the Department of Revenue standards. Within a 10-year period, we're supposed to hit every improvement in our
Yeah,
community.
it's not happening, you know.
It's not happening.
No.
Again, I mean, if the attempt is there and we don't get in, they move on. But I have that to go back on if they ask me to produce a report. I could say, okay, on March 3rd, we went to 1 South Main Street, but they weren't there. But it counts as a hit, even though
So
we
then
didn't get in.
they just show up? without-
Correct. Or if we don't get in, or if the person denies us entry because it is by,
If they're not home, does
if
that?
they're not home, if they're not home, it doesn't count. But I mean, if we knock on the door, because we're not making an appointment.
Right.
And what happens is if the taxpayer chooses not to cooperate and let the assessors in statutorily, they lose their right of appeal. If they challenge their value, and this is on record, they really can't bring it any further, and they can't challenge the value that they taxed on.
All right, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna regret doing this, but I'm 24 years in my house, and my last
one's ever-
inspection was 22 years ago. I suspect I'll get a call tomorrow, but, no,
I believe it.
just putting it out there and being honest with you, and just talking the reality of
100%.
living in town and what my experience as a resident and taxpayer has been. You should probably go look at Mr. Gasper's home before you look at mine, but, it's just, it's 24 years.
I can definitely
remember
target
it was
all the town officials
20,
if
22
needed.
years ago, and just, so.
It's an idea to target all the town
So
officials.
don't-
Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, well, you got me this year, so.
Mr.
don't
DeRoe.
worry.
Oh, good, you got Mr. DeRoe.
You can bang, but-
So just
It's
sharing my
actually done by
experience as a
sectors
taxpayer.
to make it easy. It's really done
Not a
by...
criticism, it's a
No, totally understandable. It's done by sectors, and I look at statistically, date-wise, what's been concentrated on more rather than less.
Yep.
And I know in your area of town, in that area, actually, that is gonna be the focus.
Of course it is.
Because, no, Keene Road has had some major development.
Yeah.
So that quadrant of town is expected to bring in revenues for the town, especially here and
Oh,
now.
see what I've
No,
done?
I'm saying for the new, mostly the new parcels, the new houses, there's been a lot of activity there.
We can't
No,
believe you're
and
talking
not
to.
because-
There's been no activity at my house, none at all, none.
I'm not saying we're putting a bullseye in your back,
I mean,
but
if they do that, you made that comment, if the homeowner doesn't allow you in the house, then they're not eligible for an abatement. Is it only?
if they
not
refuse,
Right. So-
not if not, they're not there.
When Roger refuses, he's not eligible for an abatement that year, but the following year, is he?
They lose their right of appeal. I don't know how long,
Indefinitely?
they have to let, in other words, if they do file an abatement, they have to let me in to proceed and have the board review the abatement. So at some point, somebody's gonna let someone representing the town in if you challenge value. And on the flip side, the town can't give an exorbitant value just to make the person come in to start that process going.
Yeah.
Because that's not fair, and we have to be fair and impartial. That's part of our purpose.
Thank you. Other questions, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay,
Anything else, Ms. Costa?
not on the budget, no, I apologize.
We're good?
All
There'll be
right.
someone at your house tomorrow, Roger.
I suspect that.
That will be a house tomorrow. What kind of beer you drink?
I told the police chief when my wife was speeding, I mean, we did that already, right? Oh, yeah, I think I'm too honest sometimes.
Roger, please.
I know.
All right.
Other issues?
The other issue, I was asked
You get the
to
article,
come in
yeah.
front of the board on my article that I submitted, that requesting to go on the town meeting warrant for the May 2020 meeting, where the Board of Assessors
All right.
is requesting to appropriate funds to hire a professional appraisal company to individually value industrial use real properties. Having this type of assessment performed will ensure this industrial use real properties are receiving a fair and equitable assessment and further support burden of tax levy for each class accordingly. Also, the appraisal company would defend their value if there were a need if the taxpayer challenges. The value approach to these types of property is done by cost or income, or both. The sales approach is really not supported, as there aren't enough good sales or market sales of industrial use properties for a data set to analyze. I do have some calls in to some colleagues to give me referrals to companies that actually do specialize in industrial commercial use properties. I did also submit a list of the properties that I'm looking to try to attempt to do with the request of the $20,000. It's really a number that I don't know what's going to expend, but the $20,000 will definitely get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And
We've got
I
some
don't know if
unique
you have that
properties.
list with, I had submitted the article. It's about 7 properties right now, just to move forward and try to visit and see if it can get done. I had a call into one company, and they weren't interested in picking up the job because they were looking at it from the other side of the coin, where technically if this gets done, these private companies will be hired by the taxpayer to prove their value, or we're incorrect, the other side. And they can't because of conflict of interest.
$20,000 isn't gonna go far for some
I don't think it
properties.
is, but it's just a stepping stone,
Yeah.
if you will. And how it would be judged on who goes, because again, of the fair and impartial issue, would be definitely by the company that comes and looks at our data and see where they want to start, maybe, or with what they'd like to do, or how far that money's going to take us.
It's not gonna go
I
very
don't-
far.
I-
I know what
I-
appraisals cost,
I
it's not
know,
gonna go very far.
especially,
I should become
yep.
an appraiser?
I'm sorry?
I should become an appraiser?
Yeah, it's,
So, can I say?
yeah, go.
So, Ms. Koska, I commend you in this effort, because we spoke 3 or 4 years ago on this, when we had some disruptions in certain areas, right? And we talked about that, and we talked about the taxes on certain properties. And I thought it would be a great idea, because you're not the expert when it comes to these kind of properties, and we're saying this is the value, but is this really the value? So, I'm glad to see that now we're moving forward with this, and we'll try to get better at, better appraisals at what we're doing, and I think you're absolutely spot on for the Board of Assessors. If they're ever challenged from it, you have some supporting documentation to be able to debate that with whoever it is, whatever party it may be. So, thank you.
Thank you. Also, I have 2 other potential articles that I did not send to Julie or the board yet, which are, may I touch upon
Yeah,
those
of
right
course,
now?
please.
Now that I'm here, right? It would be for, the assessor's office does not charge to produce a certified abutters list. We put it as part of our service. It has come to my attention recently that there's been an increased request for certified abutters lists, and after a conversation with Julie, I'd like to see, my board is meeting March 24th, and I'm going to review this matter to tag on a $25 fee per request. So that's something that I'm going to be discussing with the Board of Assessors on March 24th.
That's not an expense one though, right? That's just a,
It'd be a fee that we would charge to produce the list.
but would that be a bylaw?
I don't know.
That's what we're gonna look into.
That's
They already
means that-
had a fee that was in place before,
Schedule of fees, we approve every year.
but this would be higher than the old fee. So they had a fee, they stopped taking a fee, and now this would be adding the fee back but increasing it. So that's what I wanted to check and see if it has to be an article.
Or if there's an existing bylaw already
Right.
governing that.
I
we need
haven't
to look
done
at
any
that.
further,
We don't
but-
want conflict. I
Mhm.
mean, too many times have we done bylaw changes and somehow this one over here that conflicts with this one over here is not taken out, and town council never looks for conflicts when they're doing it. They just look at the article and say, yeah, that's a good article, put that in, and then we find out 6 months down the road when somebody comes in to do something, well, that's conflicting with that language, and which one do we do? And I don't think that's good business practice at all, so.
No,
we should
I plan on
double check.
working this, on this, obviously, with more detail, and I'll address Julie thereafter, of
Yep.
course, after I speak to my board,
Mr. Chairman.
because they have to give me the go to move forward.
Mr.
And I missed the beginning. This fee would be assessed for,
The petitioner requesting the abutters list would
Okay.
pay $25 to get the list,
okay.
from the information from us. It's
Right.
almost like I think there's a bylaw in place where if there's a request for information, the fee is the lowest paid person in the office, the hourly wage,
Yeah,
of
some
how long it
in-house
takes to do the
language like that,
project, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, the premise is based upon
That's
that.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
That rings a bell.
You had one more article.
And in segue to that, I'm looking to possibly, also going to discuss with the assessors at the next meeting, is in relation to the imposition or the implementation of a potential electronic abutters list tool to generate the lists. I've inquired with Patriot Properties, who is currently our camera software that we use, to see if this interface or this tool actually is functional within the software we already have, and if not, what we're looking at for numbers or cost. I've also inquired with MassGIS, a gentleman by the name of Paul Nutting, in regards to what a tool they call MuniMapper, or it's a tool, an interface through MuniMapper, through MassGIS, that produces abutters lists, and the data that's there is what we provide annually to the state. So the only thing with MuniMapper and if our camera is used, I think we'd have the latest and greatest owner information. If MuniMapper is used, they're a static database based on whatever we commit or assess on the assessment date of each fiscal year. So there'd be that little bit of a lack or a gap, if you will, if there were sales, but it probably would be minimal.
We already have MuniMapper. Some department heads already have MuniMapper in here.
I do not. And if they do, that was unaware to me, and if the functionality of a butters list is actually something that another department head can do, I'd be more than willing to see
No, I'm
what they
saying
have
if
capacity
we,
of.
so I think Jim Merritt's got it,
Okay.
MuniMapper.
Yep,
Okay, so if he has it, something that he does with Oliver, there's some part of it
Yeah,
that's called
and I-
Oliver,
and
where
I
you
can
can
do it too.
explode properties and all that.
Yep.
It's part of MuniMapper.
yep.
So are you saying that you might not have to expend anything, because it might just be a
No, I think
box
it's
that
an
they turn
enhancement.
on?
It's an enhancement, I believe, that would be
Okay.
done to MuniMapper through the
Okay.
MassGIS program. I don't know specifics, but again, cost-effective wise, that's why I'm waiting to get information back from this Paul Nutting.
So
see
you
what
know the
happens.
cost between Camera
Yeah,
and
I mean-
MuniMapper, and see if this is available through MuniMapper and what the expense ratio is
Correct.
to turn that tab on, if it's available.
And if you're saying the town already has a product from MuniMapper that's functional, that, in other words,
Well, I
MuniMapper
don't
that's
know on
available.
that end, I didn't say
Oh,
that, I'm just
okay.
saying the town already has MuniMapper.
We all do. It's
Okay.
all, it's web-based. But there's functions that you can do within it that I think you have to pay for.
Okay.
Or you may
Yeah,
have to
right.
have licensing for, I'm really not sure.
That's fine, that's fine. Same concept.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No, that's it.
Ms. Kowski, anything else? All set?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, good, thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you,
coming in.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Assistant
Sorry
Treasurer,
about
thank
the
you.
budget confusion.
No problem.
Okay, have a good one.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thanks.
Next up, Council on Aging, Linda Sylvia, welcome to Sylvia.
Good evening. Hi. Okay, so, we're asking, the general housekeeping, we did a 2% COLA increase for our staff. In our building and grounds repair, we have our septic and grease trap serviced every year. That's costing us $1,500, which we've never added into our budget. So we've been robbing Peter to pay Paul. So we're asking for an increase of $1,500 in that line item. And our biggest increase is, and this would be at your discretion, we currently have an outreach worker who works 18 hours a week. She doesn't get paid through municipal funds, she's grant funded. So we would either like to, because of the number of people she's servicing, either increase her hours by 12 or
Is that the
hire.
program coordinator position in this
No,
one?
I'm the program coordinator. This is the outreach worker position.
This says program coordinator in the line item, so is it labeled wrong?
It is. It should
Because I was
be.
gonna, Mr. Cabral just nailed it, because you're the program coordinator.
I am. I'm a director and the
Right.
program coordinator, and this would be an outreach
So is this
coordinator.
is that line item? No, outreach coordinator.
512-100, do you have it in front of you? 512-100?
Yep.
Outreach coordinator.
Is this another one where they combine?
Oh, this was
No.
512, yeah, 100.
No.
We probably need to
This
change
has
the
always
title
been
on that
that
one.
90.
Yeah, I think so.
Heather, this
So
nine-
one more time, what is
No,
it?
Okay, no, that's okay, but just to give you a little back history, when
Yeah.
I came back the second time, they rolled the program coordinator position into the director position, so I wear both of those hats. Would be for an outreach worker to social services, fuel assistance, food stamps, so that's what this position is responsible for. We do have someone working 18 hours a week right now, grant funded, the town is not paying for her. But we definitely need an increase in hours, so whether she gets the extra 12 hours we're asking for, or we create a second position that's funded through the town, that would be at your discretion.
Would the grant continue to come? or-
It was, we just received notification, their grant funding runs April 1st through the end of March.
Mhm.
So we've secured funding beginning April 1st, 2020 through March 2021. So we're guaranteed that funding for the next year. We've had it for the last 3.
So your proposal, it's basically, it's 18, you say it was 18 hours a week?
Correct, yeah.
For the 10,000 bucks, we'll call it, 9,000?
No, what we're asking for, the 9396, would be
Yeah.
for 12 hours a week. So she's working 18 hours under
But
that
then
grant.
that would trigger her as a full-time employee,
Right, so, and I know we don't discuss people, we discuss positions, but the person who's in this position does not need benefits.
Mhm.
Okay.
And just kind of give you a snapshot of what she's doing. January was obviously a short month for us with weather and holidays. She worked 65 hours. She saw 35 clients, a total of 75 times. Those visits included social emotional visits, referrals to other agencies, fuel assistance. We do a lot with Medicare and insurance assistance. We both do that. We're both certified for that. So it runs the gamut. We're visiting people in their homes. They're coming to the senior center. We do what our residents need.
Mhm. Excellent.
And I have no articles coming up, but
Good girl.
I tried. We did apply to CPC though for $28,000. Our air conditioning system was installed in 1999 when they redid the building. It has not been touched since, so we were chasing leaks all summer. So what was recommended to us by the people we worked with Mr. Merritt, that we would look at the air conditioning system. We do this in 2 phases. Air conditioning this year for $28,000 to replace all 5 condensers. And then maybe next year start looking at our heating system, which also was installed in 1999 and is hobbling along.
You got your new generator, is that done?
I do, it's up and running. I got my bathroom going in, that's almost done. And Mr. Merritt and his team has been working on our floors.
Perfect.
That was an article we appropriated for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Well,
$125,000
remodel
2
was
years
like
ago.
$110,000 we did?
125.
120. How
Yeah.
much money we have left after we're all said and done? Do you have a
89,000 and change
Left?
left?
left, but I
So-
haven't paid for the bathroom yet. The plumber just came and started to work.
And do you have other projects underneath of that umbrella for that funding
The
source?
only other thing right now is we're working with Mr. Oliver to upgrade our phone system so that we use the same system as Town Hall.
Mhm.
That's about $3,500. It's a one-time fee, but that will eliminate our phone bill.
Yeah.
So we have $500 allocated for next fiscal year, but as long as the project's done by July 1st, we won't need that
So
500.
what I'm asking, Heather, is it's possible that you may have the air conditioned, the condenser
I might, if I'm lucky.
inside that old article, right?
Mhm.
Right.
There's no way you're not spending $70,000 on a bathroom.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Right. So, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I just figured it's better to be proactive and put it out there and get the
Yeah,
application in.
do you have the units that go on the walls? Because you're saying like 4 or 5 different condensers.
I have 5 condensers, they're all outside.
I know the
Okay.
condensers always will because they dissipate heat.
Yeah.
But how does your air conditioning work? Is it through vents in the ceiling like this, or are they wall units?
No,
that
I would love to have wall units. No, it's all through in the attic, and our drain pans were leaking this, we were chasing leaks all summer.
We may want to revisit before we spend $30,000 on those units. We may want to revisit, and maybe we do go to 2 or 4 wall units for the building, because those wall units are relatively cheap. I think installed 15,000 BTUs, you could probably do $4,000 a piece.
So do you still want to do, my intention was I didn't want to be greedy and try to take all CPC's money, so that's why we were doing air conditioning this year and looking at heating next year.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it as
Well,
one project?
we should review that a little bit better. I'm saying about the air conditioner, $28,000, instead of going with all new units outside like that, you can buy capacity, and one unit, outside unit, can feed 2 or 3 wall units, and they work really well. A lot of restaurants have them now. So, if I priced them out, they're relatively cheap.
Okay,
So,
we can look at that definitely.
and if you have a problem with the unit,
Mhm.
you lose that unit, you still have 3 other ones
Right.
on the
Makes
other
sense.
4 walls that are working, so it might work out a little bit better.
Okay.
Well, we should explore that.
Other questions?
No? No, looks in line.
Thank you for coming in, Ms. Sylvia. Thank
Make it
you.
as easy.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Richmond, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. And we've got your budget.
What I'd like to do is just take a couple things out of order. Start with down in expenses. There's a couple of expenses that show some significant increases. I just want to kind of explain that. The biggest, well, we'll just go in order. 5192 clothing allowance, is going up. That's contractual, and that's based on the additional personnel that we're hiring. They're entitled to a clothing allowance. Full-time dispatchers, have a clothing allowance now as well. So that's based, that number, the 28.9 is based on, for the dispatchers, it's actually a little bit of an estimate. The officers have a flat dollar amount. The dispatchers have a uniform, that number of uniforms, articles of clothing. So I use my best estimate based off what we spent this year on the dispatchers and kind of extrapolated that out.
You're talking about, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
The clothing allowance, what number did you?
5192 or 519,200.
I think he's talking, you're talking about the spreadsheet you've given us from
Yes.
November 30th? So this spreadsheet, right here, he's talking about here, right?
I'm sorry.
You're not looking at the budget, right, Chief? I mean, it reflects the budget, but you're looking at the.
I'm looking at, the spreadsheet, I'm sorry, yes. And it's showing the increase over FY20. I'm gonna drop down to the other big increase, 5245, which is repair and maintenance of software. In FY20, it was at 13.6. And you see it's jumping up about $10,000 to 2320. What I, yeah, go ahead, sir.
These numbers are incorrect. I got $29,950 for clothing allowance.
So, yeah.
And this one says 51,000.
May I
Right,
approach
you
just to see? Yeah, just to see
Sure.
what?
Oh, sorry.
What's your total,
For
Chief?
clothing allowance, I got this one, clothing allowance, I got 29,995.
Okay, all right, I was able to adjust that down based on
I've
part-time.
got 29.95 also on mine.
Okay, I'll work off that one then.
What's your total, Chief, on the bottom?
My total at the
Total-
bottom?
total budget.
2588671.
No, we have different
They
numbers.
had different numbers.
Can you, Julie, can you go make a copy of his budget so we're looking at the same numbers,
Yeah.
what we're doing here?
This is nice stuff. I'm just trying to find like, wait.
Continue my stuff. That's fine. That's up for grabs if you want that.
What just in the interest on that, we'll look back at the actual numbers on the software maintenance. What was there was about $13,000. And previously what was happening is our records management software, which is the bulk of the cost, that was the only cost that was being drawn out of that line item. We have other recurring software and maintenance costs that were being drawn from other line items. So in the effort to try to make this as transparent as possible, to try to get all our fixed costs accounted for, is I took the amount of money from other line items and I put them into that software. So I bulked up that software line item, but I took the amount that we were spending and took it from other line items. So we were paying software bills from 3 different line items, and I just basically put them all into one.
That's what we should. Right?
Just thank you. Just so when it comes time to sharpen the pencil and the eraser, so to speak, we know what our fixed costs are, and we know where we have a little bit of an area, maybe a little wiggle room. So jumping over to 52,4,500, we're going from 13,600 in FY20, jumping up to 23,220, because that's in FY20. And what we're doing is we're taking, there's money coming out of 5244 office equipment. There's also money coming out of R&M buildings and grounds. So we're taking our antivirus software that we were paying out of office equipment. We're taking our access control software that we were paying out of building and maintenance, and we're putting it all in that software line item, because these are costs that we have every year. So we know that number is, unless there's some sort of unexpected, increase of, percentage points, that number should be spot on what we're spending on these recurring costs in those line items. And the increase is taken out of, like I said, the amount of money is taken out of office equipment and building and grounds and put all into that software line item. It's kind of a convoluted way of explaining it, but does that make sense?
Yes.
Right, I can see where it dropped from, like office equipment, 12,000 to 5,770 this year. So you're taking that $7,000 and putting it into the software
Yes.
budget.
I just thought that was a more efficient way to be able to keep track of those costs. Clothing allowance, we'll jump back to that one real quick. That, like I said, that 28.9 number reflects about a $5,000 increase. That's reflective of the additional full-time dispatches, the additional part-time personnel. And like I said, the dispatches, it's difficult to assign a specific number because, like I said, they're ordering based on, 4 long sleeve shirts, 4 pairs of pants, a pullover and whatnot. So depending on where they buy them, there's a variance in cost. I mean, they're bound by certain shirts with embroidery on them that meet a certain standard. But I mean, pants can run from, $50 to $100, based on the nature of the police and dispatching fields, where they're bound by buying them from certain locations, so they know there's a clothing allowance that's there, so unfortunately, those costs tend to be a little bit higher.
So this is a clothing allowance for the whole police department?
For both police and dispatchers.
And dispatchers?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We were on the bottom, could we go back up to the top?
Yes, sir.
And talk about the staffing plan?
Yes.
And I'm looking at salaries, permanent positions is up, and overtime's up. Could you talk about, and I know overtime's down dramatically from where it was in the past.
Yes.
Just how are we tracking so far this year? We're 9 months in.
We are, to be completely honest with you, we are in no way close to reflecting being able to operate within this budget right now. The problem is, was, or it continues to be, but we're rectifying it, is that the budget model that was adopted in FY20 was reflective of hiring additional personnel, and for a variety of reasons, we never achieved that. We're actually pretty close. Yes. Part of the plan was to hire 2 additional full-time dispatchers. That is actually finally come to fruition. Number 3 is finishing up training, probably another 3 weeks or so. I hired, based on our conversation last week, I made the offer and hired the 4th one. She should be starting on the 23rd. She gave her notice she's going to be starting on the 23rd of March. I anticipate a short turnaround of training with her, a couple of weeks. The normal dispatcher is probably about a 10-week training period, contingent on certain classes. With this 4th one that we're bringing in, she has all the certifications, so her training period and acclimation period is probably going to be about 2 weeks. So I'm looking at probably the first week of, roughly the first week of April, where we will have dispatches around the clock with the exception of 2 shifts a week. And I'll be able to take a midnight officer, midnight to 8 officer, slide them down to the 4 to 12 shift and start not replace the first person out on the 4 to 12.
So the overtime, just one more.
Yeah.
The overtime number, it was cut in half, basically,
Yes.
between 19 and 20, and there was a plan, and you're saying I'm not tracking that. So so your budget's 221, where are you through 9 months? Any?
Overtime? Oh, you're talking about for the overtime?
For the overtime, yeah, and you're looking to grow at 15% next year, so I guess I'm just curious, I know this is a transition year in
Yep.
2020.
No, the overtime budget, if I'm not mistaken, is exhausted. Is exhausted or pretty close to it.
So what does that mean? I know what that means.
Well, it means that, for FY '20, the budget is exhausted, but the budget model was based on certain staffing and hiring requirements that weren't met.
Yeah.
As of right now, we are, knock on wood, we should have those in place prior to July 1st of this year, so the upcoming budget year. We should be able to operate, or at least we're gonna make an attempt to operate when this budget, we'll have the staffing in place.
This
that
year was
was
3 months left of this year, and your overtime budget's gone.
correct.
So it's a reserve fund transfer, or it's,
If I can, so they
Go.
do have money still in other lines,
Yeah.
so that they don't have an overall deficit in their salaries. So until we get closer to the end of the year, yeah, if before May, because we can do interdepartment transfers in May, if their bottom line for salaries goes negative before that, we would have to do a reserve fund transfer to cover. But once we're in May, we can do interdepartment transfers to cover the amount that we would anticipate for a deficit. We also have, I'm not sure, I know that there are grants that come in, so that usually alleviates some of the the deficit from the salaries for police, and we also have a back charge from the school that wouldn't be showing up in the budget. Usually we do that at the end of the year, so they still have some money.
School resource officer or something like
Yeah,
that.
so they still have some money to play with, but if you're looking at the line item itself, overtime is expended. But like that, they didn't fill in the dispatchers fully, so there's extra in that budget, in that line item to cover for things as well.
Let's go to Mr.
Well, that was my question. We appropriated $201,000 for the dispatchers last year, and you told me, well, it's my understanding we didn't hire them. So we have extra money in that
Correct.
line item that would be applied to the overtime. Would it be an assumption, or is
Yeah,
that?
oh, absolutely, but the goal's to make overtime go away. 'cause
Correct.
Overtime's,
Correct. Oh, yes.
Expensive.
Yep.
the goal's to make that go away.
Yep, I can see the year before, in 19, we spent $447,000 in overtime.
So this transition plan in 20 is, to staff the same hours with cheaper people. That's the
Well,
wrong
but-
word.
Well, for less expended for that portion, but the other part of it was, we also expected, we put 4 officers in the full-time academy last April. We lost 1 about halfway through due to an injury. Weren't able to get him a seat again, and we also had the unexpected departure of another full-time officer in the fall. So we actually lost 2 full-time officers, and we did not hire the 2 full-time dispatchers. My understanding with the delay in the dispatches was, there was some, I don't know if it was a memorandum of understanding or something, just to try to work out changing them to a 4 and 2. So there was a little bit of delay, partially, I believe, on the department's part, because we were going through a transition as well. So I don't believe that memorandum was signed until maybe October, around the time I was appointed.
Right, and I understand, you're right. I remember.
So there is money, yes, yeah, to your point, there is money in that account, because we didn't start, that third dispatcher didn't actually start working until after the first of the year in training. So
Right.
if I had to guess, it's probably gonna be 60 to, at the end of the year, $60,000 to $70,000 in that line item, ballpark maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Let's go to Mr. Gasper.
I think, I know the numbers look big, right? The changes, and it was really like the reshuffling of the deck. So you took so much money out of overtime. When Mr. Cabral was ratifying the contract with Mr. Noble, and it was, we're gonna hire some staff to do that 4 on, 3, not replacing the third man out, a fourth man, 1 man out, or whatever it was. And then you had the contract negotiation that added cost to that. And then when you added cost to the contract, because when the contract was ratified, there was some changes with EMD stipends and things that were added to salary that brought the salaries up a little bit. The salary was a salary, but it brought it up a little bit, which it compounds the overtime because it raises the rate, the hourly rate of the individual officers. So The overtime number, I don't think was an accurate number last year when Mr. Noble plugged this number in. I don't think there was no question in my mind we weren't making that number with the overtime, with the cost of the contract. So there's a lot of convoluted parts, especially when it comes to a
A little
police
bit,
department.
Chief Alvis's numbers, I mean, the Chief Alvis's numbers from
Yeah,
last year.
I think some of that
Yes,
changed
yeah,
around
not
on
to,
Chief Al's.
yes.
So I had a conversation with Chief Al's, and he told me several months back before he retired, you're not gonna make it on the budget because things were changed around. So, I think, giving the new chief the benefit of the doubt, we just hired you permanent when January, I think maybe 1st or something.
Well, it was actually, the appointment was the appointment was November. It was November of,
But we didn't finish finalizing contract,
Yeah,
right,
well,
until after
correct.
that, so.
They're not being
There's some-
critical,
There's
just
some, there's
understand.
some things going on. Mr. DeRoche and Ms. Hebert, they did the dispatches in the ASME contract. That didn't happen until October, November. I believe the MOU was signed there, so we were 4 or 5 months behind there as well. So that's all impacting the overtime. I mean, it's, you have to realize that when you looked at the numbers and you look at the contract ratification, and obviously the higher the hourly rate, you're gonna multiply that by 1.5 times when you're paying overtime now, so that overtime rate goes up. And, I questioned the whole plan. I said, I'm thinking it's like $90,000 more just to do it. And I didn't factor in vacation time or anything else in my last budget. I got the budget book right here when I spoke on it, and all my numbers are in there to the chief, the former chief. So, I think we know the year is messy, budgetary-wise.
The transition.
And we'll do what we need to do to accommodate, any inconvenience we may have placed on you, chief, with the contract, because you were involved with the numbers from last year. And we'll do what we need to do. I think Ms. Hebert, she knows that there's money floating around. Mr. DeRoche pointed out the dispatch number, that there's that 4 or 5 month gap, maybe even 6 months now, of a gap that we ain't taking, drawing from that salary. So we might have, 40, 50,000 bucks there. So I think in the end, we'll be all right. You might have to go for a reserve fund transfer, some money, but.
as we start to go into the fourth quarter, that's traditionally probably one of our heaviest quarters. Having that person on the 4 to 12 shift, to alleviate that overtime burden is gonna alleviate it. It's gonna make a difference. Additionally, we have a person that's been gone on a year-long deployment that's gonna be coming back, and, I'm hoping that he'll be back by mid-April, back to work.
There you go, military,
And
yeah.
what'll happen with that position, whether it be that person or the position, I'm gonna throw that on the day shift. So 4 of the 6 day shifts, because work the 4 and uniform people work 4 and 2, uniform officers work at 4 and 2. I'll have 4 of 6 days in that rotation, I'll have covered by a 4th person. So there'll be some additional savings that'll come through there in the fourth quarter that, put us closer to where we need to be for this
Okay.
fiscal year.
Very good.
Vehicle expense?
Yeah, that's a,
That's broken out too.
yeah, no, that's a quote from MHQ off the state bid where we normally get our cruisers. That number there represents the new hybrids that everybody was supposed to be going to.
How many vehicles?
That's 2 vehicles.
That's 2.
That's 2 vehicles. Part of the issue is Ford has decided to kind of change the interior of their cruiser, so a lot of the equipment, the cages and whatnot that we normally are able to switch between cruisers, we're not able to. This is one of those years where it's a bump year. The dividers and whatnot that are in the cruiser that, yeah. we
You
have
didn't
to-
get the optional cappuccino machine? or
No,
anything like
no,
that? That's
there's-
not in there? No?
Is Ford the only producer of police vehicles?
No, it's probably the most reliable one of these. Taking a look at Dodge, Vehicle Maintenance Officer Sergeant Matton isn't taking interest in Dodge. We've looked at that. Unfortunately, the costs are, in some cases, are more, in some cases are a little less, but the lead time is significantly longer right now on the Dodges, because it just seems like Ford just still has a chokehold on the market.
And you still have the complete change out. Once you go from one manufacturer to the other, nothing's matching.
Correct, if we went from Ford to Dodge,
So
that would
we
be
outfit
the case.
the whole cruiser.
There is, I say there's a little wiggle room, there really isn't. When the time comes after town meeting, when we go to make the purchase, if there are gas engines available, like, though they're a little bit cheaper, but not significantly, we're talking maybe $6,000 or $7,000 total. If
And
those,
these are Explorers you're buying?
yes, the Explorers, yeah, if they're available.
They've
Like I
gone
said, I
up-
think,
they've gone up 10 grand a piece. It was 46,000, now we're 56,000 for a vehicle.
I mean, part of it's the green technology, I think, and also part of it is the change out of the interior of the consoles and those dividers. Because if you look at the breakdown, I want to say the dividers might be, 3,500 or 4,500 a piece.
Big jump for
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have the quotes.
32,000.
Yeah.
I just, but year to year, 24% increase in 2 vehicles just
Yeah.
seems extreme.
I agree.
All right.
I mean, we have the quote, I mean, like I say, I have the quotes and they're right from the bid list, you know, so.
That's like standard equipment, is this?
Yes, there's, like you say, there's nothing, there's heat, you know, the electric windows and, you know.
Oh, you gotta go to Crank.
Cappuccino
I think we have to pay
machine.
extra for that. Yeah, there's nothing, you know, there's nothing in there. I mean, we might be able to save a little bit of money, I mean, but on that number, like you say, with the gas-fired engines, the mounts for the computers, you know, we got the new computers, so we'll be able to switch over those mounts, but again, we're not, in the realm of things, we're not talking a tremendous amount of money.
Okay. Other questions, gentlemen?
Just about the vehicles.
Yes.
How long is a vehicle, what do we get out of it? 2 years?
Depending on, 3 to 4.
3 to 4 years?
3 or 4, they made it, a couple of years ago, there was a significant effort made to try to, we used to only replace 1 vehicle a year, to replace 2, and then in an odd year, there might be 3, depending on circumstances, but we found by, our maintenance costs came down tremendously by having the extra vehicle, and the overall costs ended up coming down, so what would happen is, we'd run the vehicles 24/7, you know, in the past, so those maintenance issues would come up a lot more often, whereas now, most of the vehicles are getting 8 hours off a day.
So how many miles before you turn them in? Is it just a yearly thing? Do we don't?
No, the mileage is usually high, it's usually hours, because there's usually a lot of idling hours too, you know, it's more so that, so I wanna say when we turn them in, they're close to 100 on mileage, again, close to 100 on mileage, but
But the hours operate.
the hours operating, are putting the wear and tear on them. I mean, the fact, like I said, the vehicle maintenance line item over the past 5 years is really staying pretty consistent, you know, and it's a testament to that investment, to have those extra crews. Is also a testament to Sergeant Matton, who's able to juggle a lot, you know, if it doesn't need to be done, it doesn't need to be done.
Right, okay.
And if there's a vehicle that's getting close to end of life and it's something that is not going to affect the operation of it safety-wise, it might sit and not spend that $2,000 or $3,000 on that job and trade it in and
Right.
start new. So.
Does the town trade in the old vehicles, or do we put them up for auction?
They trade
Sometimes
in.
we
Trade
use,
'em in?
sometimes we use them for other departments. If we
Yes.
use a vehicle for another
Nice.
department, we've done that before.
Right.
Just like EMS is,
Yeah.
yeah, EMA, I'm sorry, EMA's taken a SUV, I think we did it once with, we don't have it anymore, but with Jim Merritt took over one of our SUVs, we just, they're black and white, we paint the white doors black, so it all blends in, and here you go, here's a car, it's good enough for
Right.
doing what you're doing, but we ended up getting the little EV cars through Green Energy Communities grants, so. You know, we have that solar revenue fund too, that's, we can buy cruisers with and stuff like that
That's right.
too, so. You know, I know we've done that in the past where we've been tight on budgets, we take one of the vehicles out, we do an article, and we appropriate through that solar revenue fund, and buy a cruiser with that, but I've been back and forth with this for a long time, being on the finance committee, and it was always, you know, ping pong, take the car out, put the car in, take the car out, put the car in, and I don't think that's good practice at all, because some years you might be buying 3, and it's not good for a police department, so we've tried to stick with the 2 vehicles per year, and it worked out pretty well so far, so
Good.
you know, hopefully we'll be able to continue that.
Chief, anything else?
What I'll say, just jumping up the salaries, most of that's contractual, and you see, I know we talked about the, just regular permanent position salaries, you know, there's a 4.4% increase, and the way that calculation was done, it's not just the flat increase, you know, cost of living increase. You also have offices, as I say, we're a young department, so each year you have the offices that are going up step raises, and you also have offices, which has happened twice in the 4 months that I've been there, that have achieved educational incentives, you know, that, you know, anywhere from 10 to 20% during the course of the year, so that's where those numbers come from, and they basically just carry over into the overtime, onto the overtime line item. The only thing I'll add is there's the salary academy cadets, that reflects the ability to try to hire 2 officers, 2 full-time officers that we'd have to send to an academy. And also, academy costs also reflects an additional 2 part-time officers. The 2 full-time officers come from the officer that we lost due to injury during the summer last year in the academy, and the exit of the officer that left in the fall for another community. The 2 part-time officer requests just reflect us to try to build up that cadre that we tried to appoint 5. A few months ago, you were all kind enough to appoint the 4 that were here. Unfortunately, one of those had to withdraw, couldn't commit to the academy, on the part-time academy with only the promise of a part-time job on graduation. So we have 3 in there, so I'm looking to try to reclaim those 2. In full disclosure, there is some wiggle room there. We could probably get by without hiring the 2 part-time officers, but in the realm of things, it's not a lot of money. I think we really should look at the full-time officers. We need at least one. We need at least one. If we get 2, that would make things a lot better. Again, there's some variables there as far as cost goes. I can tell you the number 1 person on the list would need to go to an academy. Somebody that would be tied for number 2 would already have a full-time academy, so some of those academy costs would be defrayed there. So there is a little bit of wiggle room. If any one of you want to talk to me about that, we got to start trimming down. We can trim from that, and that would. The academy cadets, the salary line item, if we trim down there, academy expenses down below, we would be able to trim that, some excess from that as well, if we decide to not go with 2 full and 2 part-time. The only other thing that I'll throw out there is I've thrown that out there, before, we've discussed it, the importance of a 6th sergeant to help manage the department better, and I can tell you that this budget, it reflects that additional, it's not really, it's an additional promotion, but it's not an additional body, it's basically a raise to an officer that would already be working. There's some savings. Selectman Gasper and I had some conversations and did some numbers. I think I might have thrown out at a meeting maybe 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago when we talked, might have been in December, now that I think about it. I thought, the minimum cost would probably be about $2,000. Selectman Gasper threw some numbers out. It could be as high as, $7,000 total. There are some variables that could reduce that 7 down. I think we were in agreement on what a number of those variables were without getting into deep diving on what the variables are. I think the number may fall somewhere in between, but that would, again, give us some continuity, some consistency, some stability, because we currently have 2 shifts, a rotation that are filled by an officer in charge, and that's just basically the senior officer is paid a stipend of 10% on top step, whereas the sergeant's pay is 15% on top step. So we're not talking a big jump. We're paying the money out already. In some cases, we're paying out more money than we probably should, and putting some officers, younger officers, in an unfair position, because you may have an officer that's not top step. You may have an officer that's on the 3rd or 4th step. When they're the officer in charge, their stipend, their base pay jumps to top step, and then that 10% is on top. So they're actually getting, in some cases, a 15, 18, 20% increase. It doesn't happen all the time, but we do have 2 shifts a week that we are consistently filling with that OIC. So the difference in rate is really negligible for what you would get in return.
Now, we had with Chief Al, some discussion in the past about the structure of the department.
Yes.
Potentially naming a deputy chief or lieutenant, or and not a police officer, but just feels like from a management perspective, a structure like that would make more sense than to have chief, 6 sergeants, 20 patrolmen. When I envision, and then that creates, I know you're the new chief, but maybe a succession leadership plan. You've got your number 2 automatically.
And I agree with you. If you want to give me a number 2 tonight, I'm more than happy to take it. But I'm thinking with the 6th sergeant, it could be a temporary bump. It could be 1 or 2 things. One, we realize it doesn't work, and then when we have a sergeant that, I'm not forcing him out the door by any stretch of imagination, but he's within a few years of the tunnel of retirement. The other thing is maybe this is a step toward that 2nd in charge. So maybe this time next year I come before the board and I'm looking to put a 2nd in charge, whether we call it a lieutenant, captain, deputy chief, and that position comes from one of these 6, and then we just don't backfill that extra sergeant's position.
Do you approval to create that next sergeant position? Where does that, is that something that's approved by this body, or are you saying you're doing that in your budget?
No, it's the body is already there from going to the 4.
No, I mean this body, the Board of Selectmen.
No. What I'm saying is the body is already in the budget. Like the money is already in the budget for an officer to be that 4th person. we'll say on the day shift, for the fourth, on the day shift. So the money is already in the budget, we do have the body, the person. What I'm looking for, I guess, from you, from the board, is the approval and the permission to call for a list, because we still have an active sergeant's list to appoint. That's what I'm looking for, is the ability to have the board appoint that sixth sergeant.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go, Mr. Gasper.
So I've done a lot of work on this sixth sergeant thing. I went and seen the chief. They run a 6-week schedule. I've actually highlighted where an individual runs, where the individuals run, where it creates the OIC, officer in charge. What's kind of ironic is, it comes out to 112 weeks. In one 6-week schedule, it comes out to 112 hours in one 6-week schedule. There's 8.66 6-week schedules in a calendar year. And then when I started looking over the numbers, so that's 112 hours of it, right? So you multiply that 112 by the 8.66 to make that, it comes out to 970 hours, I think we talked. That's automatically by this vacant
I'm
slot.
gonna need another flow chart, but you keep going.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to clean up everything and do it over with Julie, but, and the chief, to make sure that everything's right. But I've done a lot of homework. I got papers and documents from Julie already. It'll get worse once I'm done explaining. So so I said to the chief, give me a schedule, a 6-week schedule, so we, the board, if once I make a copy of this, see how I highlighted the boxes of where we're talking. There's two. The list is good for basically, just over a year left, because it's a 2-year list.
The exam was fall of 2018, and
So we got a little bit of time.
Yeah, probably about, we'd be expiring this time, well, we'd probably already be expired by this time next year.
Ironically, it's very interesting, because when you follow this through, it comes up to 112 hours, and I've talked to the chief, it comes out to 970 of OIC every year. But
Officer in charge.
Officer in charge. But when you look at the schedule, so I went back to the schedule, and I said, okay, so I know that those are missing spots where we don't have a senior command guy on a shift.
There's no sergeant, so we're taking a patrolman and
That's-
making that
he
person,
talked
giving
to-
them the title.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an officer in charge is 10% versus a sergeant's 15%, so the differential is 5%, okay? The problem is when I go back to the schedule and I started looking at other inconsistencies with the way this, I'm not gonna try to sound like a rocket scientist with the schedule, because I'm not. I can only tell you what I see on the 6-week schedule that's been presented to me by the chief. 11 other times, it's conflicting, 11 other times, that if one of them was so I did it right here. Hold on, let me point this. 11 times, one of the individuals that I used in here of the 2 other potential sergeants, Tommy Carew, is teamed up with Tommy Carew. He's a sergeant. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's.
So there's two people. I isolated one individual because he was second on the list for the sergeant, and then we have another individual, which we obviously would want to bring in both of them and do a little interview with them. Tommy Carew's already a sergeant. He was one of the candidates to be chief. He came in and interviewed in front of us. He has 2 more weeks. 11 times Danny was paired up, this individual was paired up with Tommy Carew. So that's 11 more shifts that are opened up that he's been paired up. If that individual's taken time off, is what I'm saying, he would automatically fill those slots, right? As if he was a sergeant,
I'm not really, I think I need to see some of what I'm not really.
Yeah, it's an opposite, so it's an,
I know you understand, but I'm
I'm
not really.
gonna bring it all to you guys.
Sort of what I said to the solar guy, I need the flow, I need a flow chart.
It's
I'm not-
11, so
it's
the
complicated.
gist of it all,
Yep.
if you really just took it all, you take the sergeant, so what I did is, instead of isolating the 2 individuals that are on the promotional list, I just said, okay, let me look at them, and I think they're both just on the top step in the contract, but I went right to top step, because it's only a year or 2 before they get there, and with their cost of living, they're gonna be there anyway. And I took the current rate of pay of the individual, and I said, what is his Quinn bill? I factored that in, and then I said, if you gave him the 15%, what is that? So you got his current rate of pay, and then you say, what happens if I pay him sergeant? His salary difference would come out to $11,252. The cost difference on just 112 hours is $3,501. So you back out the difference, the $11,252, to make him a sergeant at top step, anybody at top step, with the Quinn, the 20% Quinn, and you figure out the cost difference between that salary, okay, making him a sergeant, and then where his current rate of pay is. You take that difference and you multiply it by the hours. It's $3,501 is what we pay to cover this hours. It's the difference between a current officer's hourly pay, and you back that off as $11,000 if you made him a sergeant, and $11,252. You back that $3,500 off. I came out to $7,700.
Incremental cost.
incremental costs, that's correct. Without any of the other sergeants do firearms training where they're gone for 3 weeks. He brought that to my attention. I'm like, are you kidding me? Then you get a senior sergeant is 5 weeks vacation, so you could be talking 8 more weeks.
Can you,
So Miss Hebert, can I just, one more thing? I want to how bad this gets, because it gets a lot worse. And I am trying to make the case for the 6 sergeants, because I think
well,
it
just,
makes a
it
lot of
feels
sense.
like this might not be the time to do it, but.
So, Ms. Hebert ran me an account number for 2018 and 2019, okay? I disregarded the number because it's not the cost difference between the 2 hourly rates. 2018, 1,672 hours for officer in charge. 2019, 1,259. So you see how bad this can get with officer in charge, and that's all due to vacation times. A sergeant is left out, takes a vacation day. So it's not just the 970 hours that him and I had talked about. I mean, this number's exploded. We're talking about the overtime line item, 1,672 hours in 2018, almost 1,300 hours in 19. So there's a lot of other hours and a lot of other things that come into the equation.
Can you and the chief translate this into something that's in a?
Yes, one spreadsheet, a clean spreadsheet. Is that
Clean
all it is, you
spreadsheet,
mean?
chief,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this is,
You don't wanna see all of this.
This is good for the camera. This is, Mr. Gasper's done a lot of work, but this is kind of difficult for us to
Right,
follow.
exactly.
Turn that into something that
Makes sense to you guys.
makes sense.
Absolutely.
Mr. Gasper gets it, I believe he gets it.
Are you suggesting hiring a 6th sergeant?
I think he is,
Going
yeah.
to be a cost savings on that officer in charge?
I think it's gonna cost us more.
It's
but-
gonna cost you a little bit more, but it's gonna eliminate a great deal of liability issues. And when I say that, I've talked to the chief about this, I've talked to other officers about this. I feel, and I've been doing this for a little while, and I've ratified a lot of contracts with the police department. There's always been that thing about liability. And when you have somebody that's only 2 or 3 years' experience that comes in and all of a sudden,
They're
that
officer.
person's officer in charge, if I'm one of the other officers and y'all my boss, and I got 1 year or 2 years, and y'all responded to a domestic violence case, this probably isn't gonna go too well, right? I'm not just degrading any of the rookie patrolmen, but let's face it, they don't have the experience sometimes to handle
The
that.
basic
I would think
response,
an officer in charge, I would think would be somebody with seniority.
it is, but based on the composite of the department,
And they know-
Sometimes that person.
just about half
will
half the
So
department.
can we make a presentation?
We will.
For the, format it instinctively, I guess I'd rather see us move toward a management structure that makes more sense, but make a presentation.
I see that,
This is my plan.
In brief,
You're the
I
chief.
think it does make sense because it's a step, it's kind of incremental, like, this year, we're doing the difference in salary between an officer and a sergeant to plug that hole and reduce the liability. Then maybe next year at this time, give me a chance as chief to get my feet wet and just figure out the whole thing and come up with a pretty good job description for that second in charge. So this time next year,
Yeah.
we're gonna make that step again, then from a
Mm-hmm.
sergeant to the next level, you know? And
So
that's.
if I can make one more point, and I think it's gonna be an important point, when we talk about that, he talked about a sergeant, so we have a few of our sergeants are higher ranking seniority years, right? We know of a particular individual that's made certain comments to different people inside the force, including the chief and myself, that he will be eligible for retirement less than 15 months, is that correct?
I think it's a little bit longer, but it's definitely less than 2 years, but yeah.
So whatever, it's right there.
So we need to start
if
thinking
we
about
did this, I'll call this as an experimental thing for the chief, to say, how did that work out this year, chief? Because it'll be a full year. And he says, well, and it's up to him to prove to us that it's worked out. If it didn't work out, then we just say, when that sergeant retires,
Yeah.
you don't backfill
We're
that
back to 5.
sergeant, you're back to
Okay.
5. When you bring in the second in command, I want to make this point. Second in command is much different than what we're talking about, because this is a floating schedule, and by the way, you're gonna be bidding schedules pretty soon, right? Is it April, May?
We're actually bidding schedule right now, and then there's vacation picks in April, for the month of April.
Okay, so that's something that we need to get done sooner
And
rather
then
than
the
later.
bids take effect in the
If you
first
do-
week of July.
If you do second in command, correct me if I'm wrong here, chief, but the concern about that's totally separate from this, because that is, I believe, you would make that a first shift position, permanent position, and it's not a rotating shift.
It's not, correct, it's gonna be it'll be non-union.
So now you have
I guess
overlap of
exempt, that'd be how I envision it, outside of the union, so the chief, you have somebody a logical chain of command to be outside the union and somebody that you can, assign certain duties to that you wouldn't assign to a
So
sergeant
the
or
board
patrolman.
might be able to, at that point, what I'm trying to say is normally that's both on first shift. So you're increasing costs.
Okay. Well, let's look at it.
So when
Let's look at it.
the board might have the flexibility to say, we create a lieutenant, captain, deputy chief, and this is the hours that we want, so there's some overlap between first and second, but you might have difficulty filling that position, because who wants to really work 12 to 8, and like...
Yeah, traditionally, that executive officer position is usually Monday through Friday, business hours.
Can we move it and bring it back? Is that,
Bring it back with?
let's bring it back, let's make a
Yeah, we'll-
do
yeah,
a
we'll put
presentation on
something
that.
together, yes.
We're talking conceptually, let's bring it back with a proposal and an analysis of costs and make a recommendation as to where you want to go. And I think you've got, Mr. Gasper, and you have an understanding of this. Put it in a spreadsheet format.
Mhm.
I know you can do that and present it to the board and
Yes, sir.
and get approval of that. But,
Okay.
We'll focus on that issue. I think,
Okay.
is where we should go.
Thank you, Chief.
Excellent. All set. Any
Anything
questions?
else on your budget, Chief?
Not the only other thing would be an article that I
What do you have?
submitted. I don't have a copy with me today. It's basically an article for the purchase of new portable radios and new cruiser radios. There's been an ongoing radio upgrade project
Yes, yeah.
that we allocated money for a couple of years ago. I'm being told, unfortunately, I'm walking in midstream.
There's a change of frequencies or sound, right?
Yeah, we don't have an hour for me to draw pictures next. We need a flow chart to understand that. But it's basically improving the regional network between Fairhaven and Mattapoisett and Acushnet. We're all on the same radio frequency. It's adding redundancy, making it a more robust system. So I'm looking for portables and cruiser radios, because the consoles that we have in the station are compatible, that would be better operating on
What's
that
the
system.
value of that article?
It's about $106,000.
Okay.
So we can talk.
Yeah, we need to talk.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna jump a little bit out of order. I know we've got people in the audience here for specific articles. I'm gonna start with Kathy Silva with the bulky item pickup, Department of Public Works. Is on the agenda, but we'll bump you up. That's sort of an old business item, so we'll bump you up.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. We got a few things to do yet. You're last on the agenda, you could be here for a while. So.
I know, thank you. So we're here to talk about bulky item pickup that the selectmen requested that we do this year. I know we have $13,000 in an article, but Ms. Hebert said there might be an additional $7,000. That gives us $20,000 to spend. I gave everybody the information I received from Waste Management. Waste Management is our contracted company to pick up our trash and recycling. So I went to them first, and they gave us some information. The only concern I have with them is they will not pick up mattresses, they will not pick up TVs, and they will not pick up white goods. They'll also charge you...
Which we take at the barn.
Yes, we take all of those at the barn. And they will charge $28 per item that we pick up. So if you have anything more than like 500 items, you're gonna go over your budget. You have 3,700.
So we're talking about, this talks about limiting it to 3 items, talks about making an appointment, saying this is what I've got.
Which we would do. Waste Management would handle all that. My concern is you are gonna spend a lot more than $20,000 if you go with their plan, because it's approximately 3,700 residences, houses. And each of those, and I know they all won't participate, but even if 1,500 participate, you're gonna be at $100,000.
What about the good old days when, remember the good old days, we just used to put everything out and, we
That was
got
when
it done for $30,000. What,
That was when the prices really were low, remember? Remember, we're paying
it was
$100,
a $30,000 and they would take whatever we put out and,
but we're paying $100.
sort of the
Recycling.
the piece of this that's, kind of unspoken, but it's part of it, is, you put your stuff out and half of it disappears anyway. And
Right, that's why we have the swap shop now.
yeah, which I love that. I love that idea. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little limited in what but yeah, I
And
love
we
the
can
idea.
expand on that as time
Yeah.
goes, as we see how it works, but that's going well.
Well, for example, I've got a couch that you won't take in the swap shop, but they'll take it bulky item.
Well, the reason we won't take that at the swap shop is, usually an old couch has been used.
It's not a couch.
I know it's a nice couch, maybe we'll take it.
It's not nice, I don't go there. But we need to give the residents of Acushnet an outlet for this kind of stuff.
Okay, well, we have an outlet. So we have an answer. If you have a bulky item, you can either call Waste Management. They would be happy to come to your house and pick it up, make an appointment. You will pay them directly. It's $28 to get it.
Under this program.
Under every day. We've been
Really?
doing this for years. We've been doing this for over a year now. And if you do not want it, they're $28 for every item they pick up. If you can get it to the recycling center,
Yeah.
the price is a little bit cheaper. We have a
I was
price.
unaware of the curbs, of the $28.
We started that last July 1st, so it's been, 9 months? It's going very well. So it's great because it cuts the DPW out of the loop. They call Waste Management directly, and they pay Waste Management directly, and they handle it, and we don't
$28 no matter what it is.
know what it is, except they will not
No matter
take.
what size or weight, you're
Right.
paying $28, it's a ripoff.
So, but they won't, and they also,
Could be good unless
Unless
it's a
it's a
couch,
couch.
unless it's a.
they also will not take mattresses, TVs, and white goods. So they
And
won't
what-
pick those up.
White goods,
Wait,
White goods.
White
washer, dryer,
Washer, dryer,
refrigerator,
refrigerators.
dishwashers.
Yeah. We will take all of that
But
at the
we
recycling.
take it for free because that's metal.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, but the only problem is then you have to be able to get it to the recycling center. So we have options of how to get rid of items right now.
Does the, all right, I was unaware of the $28, so does the typical resident know that? Because I feel like I should have and I didn't. I was aware of dropping off at the town barn, I took advantage of that earlier this year. I was unaware of the fact that I could put my couch on the curb and pay $28 and get it picked up.
So we did announce it on the website, but it's also, the flyer you receive from Waste Management every
It's in
year?
there somewhere?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's on there. We also, if people call the DPW and say, how do I get rid of? We obviously tell them their choices. Some people choose to, a lot take it to the recycling center if they can because it's a lot cheaper. It's not $28 to get rid of every item,
And the
depending on.
shed, the swap shed's free.
Swap shed's free if it's something that's
qualifies.
usable. Yes, exactly, which is great.
Mr. DeRoche?
This proposal by Waste Management, it's free for 3 items per household?
Be free to the residents, yes.
Okay. For
The
residents.
town is paying for it.
But they don't tell you what those 3 household items could be. They tell you what you can't put
But
in
you
there.
can't.
If it's not on the list of what can't be, then it can be. So if.
I know.
So
Well,
if,
can
their
you give me
answer,
an example of what I could throw in there?
if it
I mean,
can
a
fit in your
column?
recycling bin or your trash bin, do not put it up for a large item pickup. These are large items. So if it is a couch or a bureau, any furniture, they'll take it. So if it's large, if it can fit in your barrels, please put it in your barrels. You don't want to waste their time, you don't want to pay $28 for that. If it's a white good, a mattress or a TV, they will not take that. Anything else they will take. Bulky items, so it can be kids' toys. You know how sometimes it's hard to get rid of the kids'
Yeah,
toys?
yeah.
Things like that. It would include any of those things.
So I could put 3 things out of that nature, and they'll call them up, and they would come and pick
No,
up.
but if you're gonna call them up and do it, you can put as many as you want. If you could call them up and have them take 5 items, if you personally are gonna call and pay for them, we're trying to come up with a solution for this bulky item pickup, then the selectmen want to
Well,
do.
this says we've got to call.
Right, well, this is something that they typed up that we could send out to the residents if we choose to do this plan. Okay, this is kind of like, this is what they usually say, this is what they came up with, is if we're gonna go forward with this. And you could change, you don't have to do 3, you could do 2 items a household. That's up to you to
You can't just
decide.
pick a day and say, put your stuff out and limit 3
Okay, so
items
the
per-
reason they said over a week is they don't have the manpower or the trucks to do that. They have to have a week that they have extra trucks available, so that they will be going out, if your pickup day is Monday, then they would pick up these bulky items on that Monday.
Okay.
That's why they're
We're
doing it
talking
that
about the
way.
largest trash company in the United States, Waste Management.
Good point. They
And
don't
we
have enough
can't
stuff.
pick it up. So look, you know what? This is pretty aggravating because the people, we promise the people that we do this, and I know that Mr. Manat has a different perspective where, certain people don't put it out and it's not fair to them, blah, 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 it's tax dollars. And you can go down to the recycle thing, but look, clearly this plan doesn't work. I mean, let's call it 3,000 households, right? Times, if it's, what'd you say it was, 28 bucks, 28 times 3? That's $84 per household, that's $252,000 that we could be in jeopardy. Multiply 3,000 households, if everybody put 3 little chairs like that, they're gonna charge me 28 bucks no matter what size my little item is, because that won't fit in my recycle bin or my trash bin. And I put 3 of those chairs out, it's $84 they're gonna bang me to take those 3 chairs. Are you kidding me?
From 3,000 houses.
From 3, that's 252,000, that's only on 3,000 houses, so this plan is, it's absolute.
Well, this doesn't talk about $28 per item.
Right, there
No,
are
well, the
credits.
reason they did not put that on this was because this is something that we could send out to the residents if we chose to do it. And we're not going to put a dollar amount on it because the town is paying for it. So to the residents, it's free, so that's why there's no price on this.
You can't, what she's saying to you is we have to figure out an alternative
This doesn't
for
work.
$20,000. How do we give somebody the opportunity, maybe this is the last time that the town does it, but we've told the people, and people asked us on town meeting, are we gonna do the bulky item? It was something that was brought up, and we pledged yes. So I guess now it's left for the board to figure out an alternative plan. What do we do? Do we say we're gonna allow 3 items per household and have the DPW go? mean-
I actually came up with some ideas. I called other trash companies, and they all will not be able to do it for us because they're in the same situation as Waste Management, meaning they don't have the time or the ability. Most of them don't even offer it because they do what Waste Management does. If you live in that town, you can call up and have it picked up. So I removed them off of my list. So the next thing was I went to Mr. Menard and said, would you be available to pick
Mr. Menard by himself.
by himself?
That's right.
Mr. Menard is my boss, so
I
he
know,
went
with
to,
his truck.
it's his decision. So he said that he talked to and thought about it, and he said he could do it with their trucks and the loader, and they could pick up everything, mattresses, TVs, and white goods. But it would take them probably 3 Saturdays to do it all, because you'd have to do, we're thinking maybe 2, like a Monday, Tuesday route would be done one Saturday, then you do a Wednesday, Thursday, the following Saturday, and then the last one you do Friday, and anything that gets missed or...
And we still gotta dispose of the stuff once we've got
Okay,
it.
so then I contacted
Yeah.
CMAS, because if it can't go to the recycling center, because for the recycling center, we have our TV place, so we can put the TVs, we have the white goods, and then we have the mattress trailer, so all the mattresses will go in there. Just a side note, if we put out mattresses, if they are wet, they cannot be taken, they have to be dry. So if you're gonna put out a mattress for any of this, it needs to go out that morning, and if it's raining, we'll
Don't
have to
put it
figure
out.
something out, yeah, just call us and we'll have to do it the following Saturday, whatever. But anyway, so those 3 things would go back to, excuse me, the recycling center. And then I had to call CMAS, because CMAS has to be in agreement to take this. When I spoke to them at CMAS, they are more than willing to take these items. Saturdays would be great for them. They could not do it in the month of April. They're doing an upgrade to their system. So that's why they said May would be the best, and they said the first 3 Saturdays in May.
But is this a full bulky item or just? the
Full. So
full bulky
everything,
item pickup?
yes. So what Mr. Menard would do is he would have his staff bring things to CMAS throughout the day as they accumulate them, and then anything goes to the recycling center will go to the recycling center.
So your couch would go to CMAS because they
Right.
can burn it.
Hmm.
Your refrigerator would go to recycling because we're gonna get money when we sell that to places, scrap yards like
Right, we'll
Cody
get
and
metal.
Tobin or whatever, we get paid for the metals.
And we've got the resources to do it?
Yeah, so I sat down and I said, all right, well, what if we did it with this way? I estimate approximately $9,000 for labor, and that's high. I went with the highest.
Yeah, we're bringing
employee we
people
have.
in at overtime rates.
And we're bringing, I put them in overtime rates.
Yeah.
And I said, everyone we have comes in that Saturday. And I took the highest paid employee, just used his, just so I made sure I had a little buffer in there just in case. So that's about $9,000. That's leave $11,000 for CMAS. And that would give you about 170 tons. So I think it's doable.
But we're gonna, we can't stress, I can't stress it enough that you have to limit.
I would say
still
limit, yes, you have to come.
2 or 3, I
Yes.
mean, you know,
Yeah.
you just, it's not a heyday, and look, and it's because it's gonna be our crew, we're gonna tell Dan, if there's 5 items in front of that house, you're
Pick
only
3.
taking 3, have a
Exactly.
nice day.
That's all they know
You
that.
leave it there and they can bring it down, that's their responsibility. If people wanna be
Right.
ignorant to the fact that we're telling them it's 3, and you're putting 5 because your neighbor came across the street because he already had 3 while you only had 1 and stuck to, and you, right, whatever?
Right.
You can't do that stuff. I mean, look, garbage is ridiculous to get rid of now. Recycling's gone through the friggin' roof. It's all ridiculous, but what are we gonna do? I'd like to just try to do this one more time and, you know, let's not make any more promises. We did adopt that recycling down at the town barn where you can go down there and pay. It seems to work out pretty well. We have dumpsters that are constantly full with stuff inside of there, so it's working out pretty well. We pledged this. I appreciate Dan stepping up and you, Kathy, stepping up to do this. But this clearly, Waste Management's out of their mind. $28 for any,
Dan thinks he can get to all the households in 3 days. I mean, that's quite a, if
I
you
know,
got 4,000
I know,
houses,
I know.
that's 12,000
That
pieces of...
feels optimistic, but he knows he knows what's possible, he knows what he's got for people, you know?
He does snow
How
plowing
many-
all the time, he knows how to divide this town up, I'll give him that much.
About how many employees would be working? Like, you said you
9.
bring in the employees?
9.
All together, water, sewer.
9
everybody.
employees?
You're taking your water guy, your sewer guy, you're taking every guy we have.
Everybody.
9 employees for 3 days.
Ms. Hebert
That's where
wanted
you come
to...
up with the $9,000?
Miss Hebert
Okay.
wants to do it too?
Ms.
No,
Hebert?
no, I appreciate what they're doing. I'm just gonna, so, just to clarify, so they would go the route and anyone on the route would just leave it out, or would you have to call in ahead
I
and
would,
say?
I am asking that nobody calls the DPW
Yeah,
because I
that
can't
could
take
be
that call volume in my
She would
office.
get 3,000
3,000
phone calls.
Just
Ann and
clarify, just
I do a
clarify.
great job over there, but I'm not, we
Yes.
can't handle all those calls and do our job.
Yes, just
We
wanted
will,
to
we'll be
clarify.
taking phone calls anyway, because once we get this out there, we know we're gonna get questions. We just don't want people to feel they have to call in and make an appointment, that's not gonna be necessary.
Right.
It's gonna be just leave the items out. Obviously, some things will happen on Saturday that might not go well, we're gonna get those phone calls and deal with them the following week, whether we go back or whatever. We would ask most people to have everything out before 7 AM the morning we do it. You know, there's gonna be some stipulations.
We can help.
Right, 3 more.
11?
I know.
Overtime. Overtime, Dave.
We'll make a great photo op.
I know.
So,
I don't have the...
Kat, I don't know if maybe it would be prudent to have an administrative person in the office because of phone calls where, you know, hey, they drove by my house and they didn't pick it up. I don't know, whatever you guys want to do, it's fine.
12?
I think,
I'm not that-
no,
I'm not good on the phone.
Yes, you are good on
I'm
the
very
phone.
rude.
It'd only be one phone call a day is all he'd be able to manage.
Yeah, we
I'd
can,
be done.
we can have somebody in the office.
If you wanted to, I mean, it's there, it's available.
We
Somebody wanted
comfortable
to-
with the, gentlemen comfortable with the plan?
yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more details,
Yeah,
you
let's
know,
do it.
like refined details, but short of that.
Break up
you
the
know,
town
once
into
we
3
get the dates
pieces and precinct 1, 2, 3?
Well, we're gonna actually do it by the routes, so it's easier, we're gonna follow the exact routes of waste management.
perfect.
Because we already have
Is that a
them.
3-day route or?
So remember, there's 5 days,
5
so on
days.
this, on like on May 2nd is the first Saturday, we'd probably do Monday, Tuesday on that day.
Okay.
And then, like I said, we can write this up for you.
And just
and then-
figure out how many, yeah. Good,
Yes,
Good.
yes. So I mean, I know that Mr. Menard's coming back on March 17th to present his budget. I'm gonna come with him, I can talk, have a better plan, if this is what you guys are in agreement with. We can talk about it more then.
The DPW budget's on that day.
DPW budget.
Yeah, no, that would work out.
I'm liking the, it feels, guys, feels
Yeah,
right?
no,
Yeah,
it's-
good?
That's the only alternative we have, really.
Yeah. All right.
The only thing I'm gonna ask real quick, is if it's okay, you guys can switch your hats for 1 second, become water sewer commissioners, because the timing would be perfect that I send my bills out on April 15th. I'd like to put a flyer in with my water bills to say, we're doing this, and give all the details.
Yeah.
That's a great way to get it out there.
Right, oh yeah,
To at least
definitely.
2,800 people.
I don't
So-
get a water
Water
rush.
bills, yeah, I don't get.
I know, so we don't have a water, you don't have a water, so my thought was I really wanted to, how I wanted to communicate was this, last time we did this, we sent out postcards and about half of them were returned. And people just didn't get the information. That did not work. So I thought about it and I said, okay, if I can put it on Facebook, if that's permitted, all things Acushnet, I would do that, I would put it on our website, we would use the board to announce it, and then I would also love to put it in my water sewer bills, because that will be going out 2 weeks before it all starts.
Whatever, by all
Right,
means.
If you put a communication on our new board, you're talking about the street sign board, if you do that, that could be scary, because people will interpret it, oh, this Saturday, my stuff's supposed to go out, and if we're gonna isolate the 3 different sections of the town, I might be putting my stuff out this Saturday when you're not coming until 3 Saturdays from now, so I would be, we
Okay,
have to
maybe we
be
don't.
careful on how,
The mattresses
we have to
will be
break
on
it, we have to break it up to whatever you guys determine the routes are, and then we should put those routes on the website and say, this is your route, this is the bulky items. But to blatantly just stick it out there, I don't know how we would be able to isolate that without confusion and people going, oh, I thought that was my Saturday.
Check the website for the bulky item schedule, maybe, something general like that.
Something like that would work.
Yeah, that would work
Yeah.
great, so
Yeah.
we do it
Something
that
to
way.
that degree.
But I think if we do those 3 things, there was, just the Facebook and the water and sewer bills, and if I put it on, on the Facebook itself, I said the word gets out pretty quickly.
Right,
I
right.
think those are the best ways to communicate, and then once the word starts to get out, we're gonna get phone calls anyway, and we'll take those phone
Right.
calls and help answer the questions as we go.
Mhm.
So, all right, so I'll come
I like
back on March 17th with a proposal for the DPW to pick up.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
so.
Jack.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, we're gonna jump again Without objection, can we go to, where is it? This is under new business. The solar pilots discussion. So I know there's a gentleman here for that, so why don't we jump for that under new business? Are you gonna lead that discussion for us? Ms. Hebert?
Sure, so, this was just a general discussion that I wanted to put on before the board. We had an article last year, that would allow the selectmen to negotiate pilots, if they wanted to, and that was approved. And so in order to negotiate, I guess in order to complete a contract for a pilot agreement, that still has to get approved at town meeting. We've had multiple solar farms reach out to us to find out if the Board of Selectmen are willing to look at a pilot agreement. And I wanted to find out in general if the selectmen were interested at all in pilot agreements. As you know, we have this special legislation that was passed. So the money that comes from all solar tax, from the real estate and personal property from solar taxes, will get taken off the tax levy and put into the capital expense fund. Typically, towns don't have that, so the thought of a pilot agreement would be beneficial to the town as well, because it would pull it off of your tax levy and make it easier to estimate what your revenues are going to be every year. Whereas if you didn't have a pilot agreement, you might have higher personal property tax in the first year, and it would depreciate very quickly. So it'd be harder to plan for. We have this special legislation, so it comes off the tax levy anyway, and it goes into this capital expense fund. So while it's a benefit to the solar properties, it may not be a benefit to the town, and that was something that I think we needed to discuss and see if we want to entertain pilots at all.
Discussion, Mr. Gasper.
So I was one of the authors of that legislation for the solar revenue fund back in 2013, 14, or whatever it was. We created that solar revenue fund. I don't think it's not going on to our levy. It goes into the solar revenue fund. There's no benefit to offering pilots to solar companies for the distribution of their taxes, spreading it out over a number of years. It actually hurts the town because we're not gaining that capital influx in for capital purchases. So for that reason, I'm not in favor of solar pilots.
Right now, am I to understand that when the solar farm comes in, they pay, the payments they make and depreciate with the solar farm?
Yes.
And pilots would create an even payment across the board for 20 years.
Yeah, and so pilot, when you do a pilot agreement, it's very detailed and you want to be very thorough with it, because you, instead of say, a 10-year schedule where it would depreciate very quickly, you always look at least a 20-year schedule. And so you have to have some foresight into what would your total tax payment be from them over those 20 years with, the tax rate increases over those 20 years and the value, and there's a lot of assumptions. So it's a very detailed process to come up with the right number for a pilot agreement. And again, it's a worthwhile process when you don't have this special legislation,
Right,
I think.
right.
But yeah, if you don't have a pilot agreement, the real estate value stays the same, but the personal property is what depreciates. And the DOR sets the depreciation schedule, and it's a very quick depreciation right now. For whatever reason, that's what they've approved. So yeah, the first year you'd have a really high payment, and over, say, a 5 to 10 year schedule, it would go down to almost nothing.
Now, pilot programs like to attract businesses, solar, but
Yeah.
we don't have any pilots right now.
No.
And we have 5 solar farms with proposals to build in town.
We've done
So
quite
it
well.
doesn't
That's why the
seem-
legislation was created, so that we wouldn't be using solar revenues that depreciate at such an enormous factor every year. We wouldn't be budgeting, so let's use the first one, Katuitt Solar by the old hen house. We brought in the first year, call it $30,000. We're probably down to $15,000 after, or $12,000, or maybe even less than that. So if you budgeted in year one and you used all that 30 grand, every year it keeps coming down, and you'll have that shortfall every year on the depreciation scale. So that legislation says that it's gotta have it's for capital purchases, it's gonna have a 5-year shelf life, meaning cruisers and fire engines and ambulances, for any capital, bulldozers and street sweepers. So that legislation was somewhat, I guess, created by me, and we petitioned the legislation to adopt that legislation, and we did, and we're the only town municipality in the Commonwealth that has it. So I think more will follow. If they're smart, they would, and they wouldn't have to get engaged in the pilots. If they want to engage in a pilot, there's nothing wrong with that too. In our particular fashion, it would hurt us, because if we had a solar farm that comes in and they say, oh, well, it's like this monster one that we just did, that's probably $50,000 in the first year. And if we want to buy, you know, a bulldozer and a tanker truck, fire tanker truck, and 3 cruisers, we got the money to do it, and we need it this year, we go ahead and do it. It's not gonna hurt us.
Option B is to take that same 50 over 20 years, probably, right? That's the
No,
alternative.
it'd be like
It's
10 or a much lower number
It'd be-
for.
It'd be like,
But spreading it out over the.
so 20 years,
like
so if it was
project,
50 grand, you divide that, whatever it
Right,
would
because it
be.
would say it would be
Okay.
50, but then it would go 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, and maybe it would level out at 10.
And we'd spread that
So
out
you
over
would-
the life of the
You would
project.
add it all up, divide by 20, and that would be your.
So it's not, I don't see it.
Right, and it doesn't seem like it's a deterrent for some people
No.
proposing solar farms.
Can I go to the gentleman in the office, in the audience who I know is here for that? Did you want to add any comments to what are we missing, or what? Is
Yeah,
that all
I
right,
might-
gentlemen, if I go to get his?
Well, certainly,
Yeah.
sure, you've been,
I'll just make
maybe
one,
last week.
just
yeah.
one point. I'm Ryan Young again with CVE, and our interests in Acushnet are out on Wing Lane.
Do you have an existing
Yes,
project? You do?
yes, at Zero Wing Lane is the site that was built by Andrew Rocket in 2016, somewhere around that nature, and we purchased it last year. So we own the land. We're gonna build a little bit, we're working very closely with the planning board right now. We're gonna build another little site on Zero Wing Lane. and we're also-
There's something
Yes.
existing
Yeah,
there?
there is
You're
something
expanding
existing
it.
now. Yes, so we'll expand it a little bit. And then we're building a site on the other side of the road at 88 Wing Lane, which is a little bit bigger. And it's right under those transmission tower lines. For solar, I think it fits in with community planning. I'm a little bit behind on the discussion because I didn't know you had special legislation, so I need to do my homework there and look it up. But the one point I might like to make is there is a special property tax exemption for solar projects that are selling for community solar, and that's the way things are going. So I don't know if your legislation creates some sort of mechanism where we wouldn't be exempt, but I think that's the piece that the selectmen should consider.
For what? What are you trying to say? I don't
So
understand.
His
what you're
project
saying.
might be exempt from the
Yeah.
legislation.
So basically, if you sell, I
potentially.
mean, it basically goes down to how you sell your power and where it goes, but if you're using the community solar program, and I can give you I mean, I sent the selectmen a letter dated January 20th, I don't know if you're in receipt of that, but.
Sent it to us?
Yes.
I haven't seen it.
So, MGL C45, 5 clause 45, which is 26, creates, basically, a solar company could go to the tax appellate court and be exempt from taxes. Town
Oh, I've
municipal
seen
taxes.
something on that. There was something in one of the Somerset or Swansea or something that got wrapped up in this. That was a legal case though. I think.
Right. So, most companies, I mean, we're trying to work with, every solar company, I think, is trying to work with towns. All solar companies are in the same position. Just sort of anecdotally, we've done this now with 9 different towns in Massachusetts. Every town has opted to negotiate a pilot agreement rather than not, and, either have to deal with depreciation and unexpected, or the solar company going to the tax appellate court and trying to get
Yeah, I
that
think that's two
exception.
different things though. I'm very familiar with what you're talking about with the tax appellate court. I read a case law on that, so I don't think that's got anything to do with the legislation that we created. What we did is we created a special revenue fund for that to go into, and that doesn't give you an exemption on your taxes for the municipality. For pay zero? You're saying that somebody can come in and build
I'm not sure,
solar farms
I can't speak to
and not
your,
pay any taxes? I don't think any
Yeah.
municipality would allow that to happen.
I can't speak to your, as I said, I haven't read the legislation.
But is that what you're saying is what because of who you're selling your energy to, that gives you special tax status, is that what you're saying? And that's
Yeah.
covered under MGL?
Right, and,
Can you, what's that, MGL?
yes. And sorry, I was more here to listen than speak. I just wanted to make sure you were at least aware of the conversation.
No,
I guess.
yeah, equal opportunity, we want to make sure we understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this is good. I'm just pulling it up again, sorry.
And
There was a fire.
just, so there was something that was sent out that I had Kelly check into, because it was the smart exemption is, I think, what they were talking about. And so, from my understanding, when I brought the issue to Kelly, she had said that it was the income approach that they use to value the property.
Yeah, that's still taxes, but it's on an income approach instead of value approach.
Right.
Well, send us, we gotta find the letter you wrote,
So,
obviously. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I can forward it again.
Can you please send that, because
Yeah.
I don't
None
recall
of,
seeing
none
it.
of,
Well, I don't know how
We
to
see a lot
contact
of
you
paper.
directly.
We see a lot of paper.
Yeah. So, MGL C45.
what is it, say that?
Clause 45. MGL C45,
C45, chapter 45.
section 5, that's 45, 2016.
MGL, chapter 45, section 5.
Yep. Clause 5, I think is what it says, CL 45.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah.
we're on it.
I'm familiar with a case on some large farm that happened, I think it was Somerset or Swansea, and they went to the tax appellate court. I'm familiar with something that happened there. I'd have to find that article again and read up on it.
Yeah, and I can, in my letter, I can attach some of the case law.
We'll take a look at
Yeah,
it,
we'll
but I
consider
don't, I don't know if anybody's exempt from taxes, right? There's only two knowns, death and taxes in this world,
Yeah.
right?
So I mean, it's sounding like given the legislation that was approved, that there's not a lot of appetite to do it unless there's a benefit to the town, but you're saying in general, most towns are doing it. I think we're gonna have to dust off our legislation and see what that gives us, and, we'll weigh that against what the opportunities are to look at the program for the pilot, so.
Okay.
We'll work on it. Do you have a proposal to make to the town for,
Yeah, sort of consistent.
was that in
with-
your letter too that we don't have?
Again, I mean, our proposal would be consistent with, we're trying to make it easy, and every town sort of has a history of what the numbers are and what they're willing to accept. I mean, what we're finding is that every town is sort of landing on basically the same price per megawatt per year, sort of the same payment for over a 20-year period. Most towns are either hiring, either a consultant or legal counsel, and those people are also sort of saying, look, you should do this, and this is sort of the going rate, and
Sure.
that number is what we're trying to hit and what we're coming at. So I can provide more information or come up with a proposal if you're willing to hear it.
I don't know if anybody else in the Commonwealth, 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth, I'm not so sure that anybody's paying attention to legislation these days, because we, the town, adopted that, I think, 2014 or 15,
Yeah, it's interesting because it's the first I've heard of it. Talking to all the other towns.
Well, don't spread the word, because it's gonna hurt you.
Yeah, maybe.
So, I will figure it out.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too, thank you. All right, back to old business, Comcast permit update.
But, are you voting on anything for pilots, or we're tabling it?
I think we're tabling it for now to do more, right? I don't think we
Motion to
need any
table.
action. Yeah.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The table for now, pending more research on everyone's part.
Julie, I'll work with you on that one as well.
Yeah, it feels
If
like
you
we
don't mind.
should.
Yeah,
I've been
and I
heavily involved with it.
and I have documentation from Kelly, but she was looking into it, but again,
I
it
know she
seemed like
is
it
as
was
well, yeah.
it was more of a value approach to
Yeah.
how the taxes are, what the value is, how you determine the
Small
value
ones,
for the
This
taxes.
one here is a smaller one. The problem with some of the smaller one, I mean, the bigger ones obviously want it too, right? But they have more money. Like this guy just came in and said, I got $40 million in the bank. This smaller ones, this one's very tiny. If you actually, when you zoom in, you must have seen it. When you zoom in on PJ Keating, it's right there. You can see the little solar facility in the back. Off to the right, off the Wing, off Wing Road.
Yeah.
Wing Lane, I'm
Wing
sorry,
Lane,
it goes
yeah.
off Wing Road.
Yeah.
And so they put their little thing like this. This is Wing Road, it wraps around. There's only a couple of residents over here. This is PJ Keating over here. They went across the street and bought signing in that one's tiny. It can't be that.
Well, we'll look at it. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, it's all relative, certainly. All right, Comcast permit update.
All
Why don't you?
right, so I was hoping to have more for you today, but our attorney is delayed in getting the documents, so I should have them on Thursday, so hopefully for the next
You
meeting.
sent an email with a lot of points on.
A lot of points.
Peg,
Yep,
I mean,
so,
Okay.
the points on from the email.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
I don't have it. I didn't know I was supposed to
So
make my own copy from
I,
the book.
yeah, I don't
It's
have
okay,
it either.
so, there's a lot to look at, and I know that you guys wouldn't have enough time over the weekend to look at it, so I'm just referencing that we have the draft permit that I sent to you, town council outlined, which I sent in the email, and I can reprint for everyone, a few sections where basically everything in these permits are boilerplate, except for these sections that he outlines. And the final process of this Comcast agreement would be approving the permit with whatever changes you want to make in
And
it.
there've been a lot of comments on, those are your comments or his comments?
These were the attorney's comments, again, for any sections that had pieces that were not boilerplate, that were specific to the town. You know, like for instance, the first one is the locations of the free cable television drops. So I'm making sure that those are correct when we're looking at the permit.
I got it here.
The other piece that he will be getting to me for Thursday is, back in, I want to say November, or early December, we had the ascertainment hearing, which again, a lot of the stuff with the Comcast agreement is technical procedure. So we had to have this ascertainment hearing. Comcast sent a stenographer, the cable committee met, and we had to discuss basically what things we wanted to do with the money to prove that, you know, Comcast is agreeing to give us a percentage and to prove that we actually had needs that would be met by that revenue. So the piece that the attorney has to send over for the Board of Selectmen to approve is a memo that outlines.
Are they looking to
the-
change our percentage at all from what we've been getting historically?
No, so, and we're getting the highest amount allowed,
Okay.
which is 5%, so.
Really, they agreed to
Cord
that.
cutting is happening. Remember we talked about that, Mr. Cabral?
Yeah.
Cord cutting,
Yes.
it gets really bad now.
Yes.
They agreed to that percentage, not negotiated?
Yes. Yep. So,
right.
so again, we have a technical,
technical.
we have a technical piece coming. He'll be sending over this memo that gives basically the minutes of the ascertainment hearing for you to approve. And then ultimately you would need to approve the final version of the permit. So, it's a large document. When you guys you've had it before, it's like a big red.
I've got it.
But this is the
I'm
draft.
afraid of it.
I know.
reading that.
This is the draft version, so when you're, and again, you know, this is why we have town council. He outlined the main points to look at, so to make it easier for you to look at those points and see if you have any issues with anything, because ultimately in one of the meetings upcoming, we would have to approve the final version.
Can you just make sure that anything that town council sends back, we involve the cable committee, those gentlemen there? Because I know we
Yeah.
still have one gentleman on that wants to get the heck off of it, but he said he wasn't getting off it until the contract was done, Mr.
Yes.
Lopes. I know Nick, I think Nick might be in the camera booth right now. He's done a phenomenal job for
Yeah.
us. He's really got a great handle on everything that he's doing. Not that everybody does it, but Nick's really taken the bull by the horn. So if they can just review everything and make sure everything that was done in these meetings, because we weren't involved in these meetings, I
Yeah.
think you might be on the cable committee, aren't you?
Some of the, I haven't, I missed the last meeting.
So
Yeah.
just make sure that everybody's on the same page and they read through all of this stuff and it's everything that everybody talked about over the last 6 months to a year, so that we're not.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of it that's negotiable.
Yeah, I know, I
A
see
lot
some, but
that's
just make sure that everybody, the cable committee folks are good with it before we voted.
Yeah, Mr. DeRoche, go
And
ahead.
I'd just like to explain to people, some people have approached me and say, why don't you go with a different service?
Yeah, that was
There
my
is
first
no-
thought. Mr.
There is
DeRoche.
no other
There
service.
is no other service.
Comcast is the only game in town.
That was my, when I first went on the cable committee, that was my first thing. We're gonna bring Verizon in here, we're gonna, you know, we're gonna get them to compete for our business, and it's not even an option.
You should have let me know, I would have told you I did that like 7
Yeah.
years ago too.
Just
So they
not even
actually
an
have FiOS on, it's strange enough this may sound, they have FiOS on the north end of Main Street.
I have iOS.
Do you?
I have iOS
Verizon,
internet.
but they won't expand throughout the town because we don't have enough residents and it's
That's correct.
not profitable.
Yeah.
I'm told 5G is gonna change the game.
5G,
for
they
everyone.
5G will change
It's
the
the
game, my
future.
friend.
So this all might be moot, so.
Let's get our 5%
Right,
one.
if you're in the 763 area code,
Yeah,
you can
that's
get
correct.
Verizon Internet. You can't get
763,
television.
I am, yeah.
You could get Verizon Internet, and you can get, but you can't get
I have to change my email.
FiOS is
television or phone.
Yeah.
You can only get the internet.
So I'd get to change my email
I've
address.
had
as well.
Verizon Internet, but it's not high speed, so don't change right away because it's not high speed, it's slow. It's, hey, dude, you wanna talk about, you know the turtle on TV that
Yeah.
Xfinity uses? Just slow skis? That's gonna be you.
All right,
So
so we
nothing-
get some homework coming on
Yes.
Comcast.
Yep, nothing needs to be voted tonight, but just look over, let me know if you have any comments on what you do have.
I forwarded the email to the other two just now. so.
Thank you.
What's that email?
The email,
Comcast.
Julie summarized some points from the attorney in the
Comcast.
contract.
Is that the one you sent to me?
Yep,
Oh, everybody got, oh, you blind copied this?
Yeah.
All right, so I forwarded it on, I didn't realize
That's what I was saying,
everybody got it.
PEG, it's the
Yeah, so,
Public
okay,
Educational Government Channel is what the
Okay.
PEG
So
stands
you
for. I
all-
was even
yeah.
confused on that, like, what the hell is PEG, all these
Take
PEG
the
lines?
MOU and, all right, so
Yeah.
you've seen it already, so you've got some homework, here's more homework coming up, okay. The MOU with the fire union employee, Ms. Hebert, expanded and cleaned that up. The one comment I made was regarding the full-time employee
yeah.
comments, we need to define, I think, what that means.
I'm
Yeah.
confused with that one.
It is very
It's- you know
complex.
what?
One that she sent, I think she was burnt up last week,
I was
she was
burnt.
doing some training, and I said, oh my God, what's it, it was like, are you kidding me? I replied to her and I said, this is way too much, and
Yeah.
so we gotta just make sure we check the language
I'll
of the
make it,
fire
I'll make it
contract.
simpler. I was hoping one of you would just have the magic words. for
Yeah.
me, but the concept is kind of easy, but
Yeah.
yeah, putting it in writing, so
The
we'll,
concept is easy, putting it in writing is not.
so
I'll
we'll,
also work with Mr. Hebert on that one as
Thanks.
well. So, Ms. Hebert, can you make a little list of everything that we're gonna
Yeah.
be doing? We've got a few things that we've already talked about this afternoon.
yeah.
Yeah, this one's,
So-
yeah.
We'll work on
No
those and try to bring
I
some
think it's just
resolve to these
cleaning
issues.
up some of this language to make it,
Right.
just bullet point, make it
Just check I wanna read the contract and make sure everything's
Yeah.
covered that way too. I'm pretty familiar with the contract, that's why I said to Ms. Hebert that I'll work with her on that too. Because all the
Thank
things that I'm
you.
familiar with, we can save a lot of time
thank you.
in discussion, so.
All right, so back to new business, we're jumping all over the place. Town administrator goals and objectives for the next year. I think this is one Ms. Hebert's put on the agenda. She would like us to set her priorities for the coming year, which is something her contract says we're going to do for her. So, not an action item for tonight, but we've got a lot of priorities in the town. So I think, as a group, she's looking for direction.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Yeah.
I know that you're not running for reelection, but it would be nice if you would like to add some input towards her future goals and
Absolutely.
objectives for Mr. DeRoche and myself to consider. And maybe, you're gonna put something in there that might be, important for us to
Yep.
throw in there, so I would like your input as well. Don't exclude yourself,
No,
just
I-
because.
But thank you. I was planning on it. I mean, there's
I think it's
a
important.
lot. So maybe if we could each come up with 5 priority items?
Yeah, 2. Get
Two?
them done.
We've had a list, she's distributed.
Well, I think when we
the
merged
list.
those.
Can you distribute, that list that we had, the old list that we
Yeah.
had of all the things that we didn't get done, but we were getting done, but we were only willy-nilly in and halfway
Yeah.
getting done? Can you distribute that list back of all the things that might be on the table so that we can review it? Because I'm
Yes.
thinking that
I might have
maybe
it.
it would be,
You've got it.
maybe it would be
So-
good to look at that for the board and say, okay, these are some of the things we absolutely should conquer in the next year.
Yes.
I think quarry's gonna be one of them.
Correct.
That's I'm not gonna say that's my number one, but that's my number one. It's right up
I'm
there.
hoping that we'll have that packed up pretty soon.
Let's see, soil board meets tomorrow night. Not on the agenda, but soil board meets tomorrow night.
Yep, okay.
All right, so we've got some, under new business, golf surplus property.
Yeah,
There's a list of several items. And, well, but both related to the golf course. So you got the golf surplus property. I think there's 3 pieces of older equipment. 2 of them are going away or going to be traded in. One of them, they're talking about donating to the school. Is
To
that
the
still the
school,
plan?
Yeah, so there's a rough mower, a fair mower, and a top. I'm gonna
Top
forget-
dresser.
Top dresser, thank you. So the rough mower, they're looking to donate to the school. The school would love to have this. This will help make all the mowing in the summer a lot easier for them. It'll take a lot less trips. They also are maintaining the soccer fields in the back, so this will be a big help for them. And then the other 2, they were looking to either sell or trade in when they're getting new equipment. So in either case, they needed all 3 to be declared surplus by the selectmen, so we can kind of go through that process.
Any objections to their plan to dispose of the equipment that's no longer functional from their perspective?
Yeah, they're just, I mean, the only one that they, I don't know what the heck they're doing with the other 2 because they didn't list a category of what they're doing or anything like that. It looks like the one that they're doing, they're donating to the school, and it would be garage either at Dan's DPW building or whatever, and for the soccer, as Julie said, soccer association. Yeah, it looks like they're gonna put together a list of some things that they may, for repairs and maintenance work that's gonna be needed to the machine before they can put it in use, so. Yeah. I don't know what they're doing. Do you know what they're doing with these other 2 pieces of equipment? Are they trading anything? One's 8.5 years old,
Yeah.
the fairway mower and the top dresser, those are trade-ins?
Those are
My
trade-
understanding is they're gonna try to trade them in, yes.
Okay, so, I don't know if we normally would do that in the surplus.
Right, would we do that in the surplus?
I don't think we would
Surplus.
do
Yeah, it
that.
doesn't feel like
Declare it
surplus. No, it doesn't feel
No,
like
we
surplus.
wouldn't be
we-
doing that on the declaration of surplus is what I'm saying, so if that's gonna be traded in, let it be traded, that's why, there's no code yet, it says condition code, original value, and what's going on with it, so, whatever, the rough mower can go to the school, we know that, and the other 2, just get clarification from the golf course, what they're gonna do with it, because it doesn't need to be declared surplus.
Could I suggest, though, that we support their plan to dispose of it however
Yeah.
whatever's appropriate?
Sure.
They're saying they don't need it, they're
Yep.
saying it's not functional
Yep,
to us.
whatever they wanna do.
I don't think we want to,
Right, because if we declare surplus, then we put it up for auction? Is that like
Sell
a
it.
fire engine, or?
You can post it, you have to post it and see if people want to bid on it.
Correct.
so it's
a part of
possible
it.
That's usually how it's done, so, you know, I don't
So I'm
know.
I'm not sure if they're thinking of doing that, and if they didn't get enough, maybe looking to trade it in, but I'm not sure.
Let's find out what they're doing with the other
Yeah.
piece of equipment,
Right.
because you can't just give it to your buddy,
Right.
No,
That's-
no, that, I'm sure they know
Absolutely
that.
not.
right? So,
Unless
just
that'd
saying,
be a
I don't know,
buddy.
I'm just
Unless
saying.
that'd be a buddy.
I'm just
Well, that's why you
saying.
go through this process. You have to advertise it on the website and
Right.
everything,
Right.
so.
Right.
But if I can buy it and then resell it, make a profit, that's legit.
You could.
Right.
Okay, so there are some items, so what action are we taking there? We're going to have them
You
bring
need
it
a
back
vote.
and tell us what they're going to do with it?
Yeah, do you at least want to vote for,
You can give the school
Give the
department
school-
a rough
Give the
cut.
school department the rough cutter, is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
And I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the other 2 pieces?
Let us know what the heck you're gonna do with it.
Yeah, we're supportive of whatever they want to do.
If you're gonna
Just
trade it
let-
in, that's fine. You
Just
don't-
let us know what they're going to do.
Yeah,
We're
just
fine,
say
we're fine with
surplus.
whatever they want to do.
Right.
But don't put it on a surplus list if you
Yeah,
trade it in.
surplus doesn't sound like the right,
Right.
We selling it, or, right, correct.
I'm looking for an old
You
email.
looking for one?
All right, so they
Might
also
be.
are looking to buy some pieces of equipment, including this is one we talked about last week, was the new canopy. No doubt that's necessary.
Right.
There's a couple of other pieces of equipment listed, and I'm looking for an old email while we're talking, so Mr. Gasper, why don't you run with it again with the,
Well,
You want me to go through
Yeah, go through
the
the-
$4,099 for a Stearns irrigation, vendor Stearns irrigation for a brush cutter, improved pace of play is the objective, $6,492.50, Situate concrete retaining wall and large staging area for outing carts, $7,348.74 to PJ Keating for asphalt page staging area for outings. So I'm assuming that they're gonna put the new paving down before they put the new canopy on, and then they got $9,602.90 for a company called Chase Canopy. It's a new tent, replace a 7-year-old tent, and that comes to $27,543. Does say that we previously approved, it looks like $55,000 for a Toro fairway mower, replace an 8-year mower. We
Right,
talked
we did
about
that.
that. But that's already been done, right? so we don't have to approve that.
Nope.
Article 9 total, I don't know what that means, 82,543.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's the total.
that's the
amount.
total between the 55
Yeah.
he spent, so that's the total amount that he expended from Article 9 from 2019. Future work, they talk about 10,000 bucks for a soil sod supplier, builds 3 tees, improved course playability. Looks like they're adding some tees. I don't know, I think when they talked about adding some tees, I think that may be for female play.
That was
And-
shorter play.
So,
Shorter play,
or
right.
seniors or something to do with that
Seniors,
nature.
children.
Future work, again, $9,250 for DPW PJ Keane for number 13, cart path, keep course open in wet conditions. That we may want to, Dan's got a use
Yeah,
paver,
okay.
we may want to go that route and see if he, I know he's been out there doing some cart path stuff, so maybe that's already been done. Proposed total equals 101,793 and signed by Mr. Isaac on 3/3/20. So it looks like he just reviewed it, so it looks like he's looking for approval for the first 4 items in the amount of $27,543. Is that to your knowledge as well, Ms. Hebert?
Yeah, so I think, I'm not sure if he wanted approval for the future work, to be honest.
Future work, he can come back if he
Okay.
needs future
Right.
work, so let's just, I would
Let's
make
do
a
the-
motion to, because I know we talked about the tent, and he said you'd be
Yeah.
seeing that in the asphalt stuff.
That's
So I'll make a
definitely.
motion to approve the 4 items for expenditure in the amount, totaling the amount of $27,543. And if they need anything else, Ms. Hebert, they can be put on the next agenda for a
Absolutely.
quick whatever, but.
That's right, because they,
think
well, I'll second the motion now that you.
Oh, the 102, because this is, I will say that this says proposed total 101,793, and it's initialed by Mr. Isaac 3/3/20, so he signed this today, and he's saying proposed total. I don't know why it says, build 3 Ts is what it says. So future work, $10,000, soil sod supplier, build 3 Ts, improved course
But we've
playability.
already
With
approved
the
the
money.
55,000 bucks, big guy.
Yeah, that's done, but moving down from there, there's,
Yeah, but that's
moving
the
down.
total amount of the article, Roger, was what we appropriated, was it, a 102?
So we get the 27, the 55, and then these 3
Right.
other items are all
Right.
detailed. I
Yeah.
think he wants all of that at 101,793.
Well,
We can certainly bring him in if we need more detail, Mr. DeRoche.
yeah, because my question is, these 4 pieces, these 4 items, total 27,500, added to the 55,000 comes out to 77,543, and then we approved 82,543, so that's $5,000, and he's asking for another $19,000.
No, the 55 and 27 is the 82.
No. Oh, is it? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
all right, yeah,
That-
that's.
This
correct.
plus that equals
My-
that.
my-
You had
my
50,
error.
but that's 55, that's what, that's
So
what.
I think he's asking for, we can certainly bring him in if you want, but I know they're very conservative when they spend money on projects at the golf course. So I think we're clear on $83,000 worth of this. The only question would be the last 18, which seems to be stuff that they want to do to maintain just the quality of the golf course. We can schedule them for next, whenever our next meeting is, if you'd like.
You know what, I agree, it's not, you're not doing the whole, the bucket, the 55 was already approved for the extra $19,250 for the sod.
I know the
Soil
team
sod
is
supply, build
very
3
conservative
tees.
about spending money.
Yeah, I've been, yeah, exactly, future work, and then the other cop path for the 19, I'll make a motion to approve 19,250 as well for the sod
So
supplier.
total 101,793 as, and if
Right.
it turns out he doesn't need it, well, but
It's all right,
I think as best I can determine, they're asking for all of it as I look at this.
We've already appropriated the 55,
The
correct?
55's done, absolutely.
So, I mean, we just
Right.
approved the 27,543 and then the other 19,250, and that brings him to the 101,793.
Right.
So he's cool. They're all
Okay,
set. They got
I'll
everything
second
needed.
the motion.
Further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Golf capital purchase is done. Silverbrook Farm Grant, that material's been distributed. Our role in this, my understanding is because we've got a farm designation on this property, all we're doing is acknowledging the fact that there's gonna be a modification to the property. He wants to construct a barn. The barn has to be used for agricultural purposes on the barn. You can't construct anything for any purpose other than agricultural purposes.
Mhm.
All we're doing is acknowledging this is happening. The Silverbrook Farm's still gonna go to attain whatever appropriate approvals are needed from the building inspector, from conservation if that's necessary, from whatever approvals would be needed, would be needed. We're just acknowledging the fact that this is conservation land, it's got a farmland conservation on it, and acknowledging that they're doing some improvements to the property.
I mean, the board is, the town of Acushnet, not the board of Selectmen, but the town spent out of CPC money, I think it was like $50,000 to match some grant that the state put on it. It's called an A&R grant. So it's a agricultural something restriction. It stands for, so they can never develop this property, so it'll always be farmland. We thought it was in the best interest of the town not to have all of this as houses or whatever down the path, so they're restricted. It'll always be a farm no matter what happens. If they sell it, it can only be a farm, so.
There is
They
a
put
way to take it out, I think. You pay the back tax.
Right, you
difference
gotta pay
between
the back tax.
I think there's a way
I
to,
think it's complicated because the state's involved now. That's
Yeah.
just not, they're under the chapter 61A. That's the agricultural
Yeah.
deferral. That's totally separate. That's
It
not,
is.
yeah,
Alright.
the town does that, the chapter 61. This has been done through the state. The state
This is
gave them like
for-
$500,000.
okay, all right.
So
maybe
this is like,
different.
for them to unwind this, I mean, it would take an act of Congress,
Okay.
basically.
All right.
So with that said, I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Reserve fund transfer, we did this Patriot Properties, did we vote that?
We already
Yeah.
did.
It's just a
Motion.
blur, my,
Go ahead.
it's a blur.
Shoot, let's go.
Town administrators report.
I have two things quickly. One was, we got an update from Chief Gallagher. As you know, when we sent out the code red for the PJ Keating hearing, there were a lot of numbers that kicked back, so he, OnSolve is the company that completed a review of the database. The validation process removed 529 true non-working phone numbers from the base of 5609, and all others were validated. So next time we have to use the code red, hopefully the efficiency is increased. So I just wanted to update you on that.
They kicked out 500 numbers?
That's everybody's walking away
There
from
were
their
a lot,
phones.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so they could have
recorded.
been, so they use, for
I
the
did.
code red, it's a program that uses all of the landline numbers. So if you don't have a landline and you just have a cell phone, like me, I don't have a landline,
Right.
you can go onto the website and sign in with, register with your cell phone. But there were a lot of old landlines maybe that were in there that were disconnected, so there were a lot of kickbacks. The other thing I just got today actually from Mass DOT was anticipation of our Chapter 90 money for fiscal year 2020. As long as the legislation is approved, our portion would be $316,826.
How's that compare?
316? That's down.
It's a little, we're usually in the 300s. I think last year we were 336.
So, and when they gave us like an extra 16, and now we're down to 316?
316.
We asked our state
That
rep to
doesn't go
go
very
up
far.
with that stuff. No
Doesn't go
It
kidding.
doesn't go far.
Doesn't even do a mile of
Doesn't
road.
do anything.
It's about
Well-
3/4 of a mile of road pavement, that's it.
Yeah,
So, can I ask a question?
yes.
I know I asked this question before, and I'm gonna ask it again, because I'm concerned at seeing some of the numbers inside of some of the budgets and where we're getting to, and I don't know, we haven't gotten a budget breakdown, we're available cash. We know what free cash is, but not available cash for budgeting purposes. We don't know anything about where our
I don't
fixed
know, I
costs.
sent that. Yeah, I sent that
I don't
for
have
the
it.
last meeting. It was in the binder.
It's in the binder.
I don't know if I had
Is that what you,
And it was emailed, yeah.
is that what you mentioned, the man?
Yeah, with the sources of revenue.
$39,000.
So all of our fixed costs, have we made
Oh,
adjustments?
That was just a revenue.
That was
breakdown.
just the revenue.
Oh, yeah, so
Just
what
revenue,
we
yes.
need to, so what we usually do is, we know what our revenue is, and then we say, what are our fixed costs? And then you have to subtract the fixed cost from your revenue, and then we say, this is what's left to
This is the
budget
whole-
with. I'm looking at some of these budgets, and I'm getting very concerned.
Give us the whole, what's the whole look like right now?
I'm very concerned.
You want it right now?
Yeah, if you got it right now.
Yeah.
Can I have it in a spreadsheet, can you email that to the board?
Mhm.
It's nice to be able to sit down and look, I mean, I'll come in and, when I'm working on those other 3 things or 4 things, Ms. Hebert,
257,000.
Is the whole?
the what?
Right, 257,000 is the whole right now, but I still don't have a number from the school.
Yeah.
I still don't
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
number.
You level funded now?
2.5%.
Okay, all right.
All right, all right.
The health insurance, we'll get our numbers next week on
Okay.
Monday or Tuesday. So there are still a few that are floating
Yeah.
around, but yeah, we'll definitely have to look through and make cuts.
I think I'm just concerned, I think the board's gonna have to, you know, we're preliminary looking at these budgets, the finance committee's preliminary looking at these budgets, but I think if you just mentioned a $200,000 hole, if that comes to fruition, those budgets gonna be sent back to the board and we make changes to those budgets, and we gotta say, where do we wanna make these changes, and the board will make those decisions on where those changes are gonna be
And
made.
that's not applying free cash to the whole, right? That's just.
That's keeping the free cash level funded from last year that we used.
Yeah, but we use a bunch of free cash.
But what is that, the 200,000, do you have any free
How much
cash to
free
get to
cash
that
are we
negative two? Have you used any free cash to get
Yes,
to that
the
negative two?
same
How
amount
much?
as last year, which
What,
is 462,000.
Okay, all right.
That's a lot of free cash
So
we
the
use
whole,
last
the
year.
whole's $660,000 then?
Yeah.
Bingo.
Okay, all right, that's what.
That's a problem, that's what I'm trying to say. We gotta look at the numbers and say,
Yeah, I would pull the free cash out of there for now, and let's just look at the 660, because I think that's a better.
we were trying to wean our way off of free cash, that's the
We still
objective,
are,
right?
yeah.
And we can
Absolutely.
choose to apply free cash to the whole.
We can, but to help us with the whole this year,
Yeah.
but the objective a few years back was to say, let's get us off of the drug addiction of free cash spending, and we're, I think Mrs. Heber will confirm this, the safe zone DOR, and I think the town is safe zone is having $1 million in free cash every year. And, you know, where are we at? That's what I'm saying, that's why I'm asking for, give us a breakdown, give us all the fixed costs, what the cumulative amount of all the fixed cost increases are. We know what we're using without free cash, and then the board should have a rational discussion amongst ourselves instead of, we're hearing, the chief came in tonight, talked about a $102,000 article for radios. Dan, I know I watched the finance committee, he's looking for a loader. That's another $250,000. I mean, we ain't got this kind of money, so we gotta start telling people no.
Well, so the articles are still open until next Tuesday, March 10th, that's what we set as our deadline. So once everybody gets all their articles in, I'll have those all compiled together.
What is
for
our
you
free
to
cash
look
now?
through.
It's nine?
$1,039,000.
Yeah, it was
Over $1 million.
Yeah, which is what our goal is, you know, you don't wanna have a number that's too high because then you're not being fair to your taxpayers because you're either estimating your budgets or overestimating your revenues. And you don't want it to be too low because you want to have
You need
some kind of
cushion,
buffer.
yeah.
Yep, and you wanna, it is a nice number to plan for your capital expenses, so after next week, when the warrant closes for articles, then you'll have a good list compiled too of everything, so you'll be able to
And
see
we'll
it.
get to prioritize.
So next week you'll have a good list from the hard numbers for our fixed costs.
Mhm.
So when that comes in, I guess the following meeting, Mr. Cabral will have a better idea of what kind of dialogue we're gonna be having and saying if we need to cut, we'll bring, I've already marked up my budgets as they've been coming in. I've had Ms. Hebert prepared a budget book for all of us. I know a lot of that's gonna change, so it's kinda like
Yes.
maybe I'm trying to take these out and put them into my budget book, because these are the ones I'm reviewing versus the old ones.
Right,
But I've already
right.
gone through that budget book, and I said, if we need X amount of dollars, this is where I would take from this pot, and this is where I would take from that pot, so I'm prepared, because I know what free cash we use. I just said the number was 462, she confirmed it was 462. It's in Article 4 of last year's agenda, it's right in that book right there. So we need to figure that out before somebody else tries to start telling us where our cuts are gonna be, which that doesn't work.
Right.
All right.
Our department heads, we have to have that dialogue with our department heads saying, this is what the board wants to cut, are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
So our next meeting is March 17th, March 11th, we have a
Yes.
joint meeting with the,
Oh, the school?
March 11th 's
11th.
joint meeting is a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, joint meeting with the school department, and that's a published meeting for us, right?
Yes, it's already
Posted meeting
posted.
for us,
What
so
time?
we'll be opening, I've
School
got it at
six?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock on the 11th, and then we're back as the Board of Selectmen here, 17th of March.
So we go next Wednesday
Next
to the
Wednesday.
school?
Yep,
No Tuesday night meeting for us? Good.
no Tuesday night, no.
Okay, so next Wednesday, 7 PM, Ford Middle School.
Soil Board meeting tomorrow night, if anybody wants to come and watch that, we'll be there.
Yes.
Now, I can attend, but we didn't post it. But I can attend as Dave
You can
DeRoche,
attend as a member of the audience.
1399 Main Street.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll know who you are. Well, don't,
Alright.
unless you're wearing a disguise, so.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't participate in the process but you can certainly be there as a resident of the community to observe,
You could
yes.
ask a question.
It'll
as a
be in
resident.
I don't see why not, Board of Health
It's
office.
a public meeting.
Public
Yeah,
meeting, yeah.
right.
You can absolutely, you can't sit on the table with all of
And be
them
a part
guys
of
and
the
start making
discussion.
decisions. You can't make
Yes.
decisions with them,
No.
but you can absolutely ask a question
Mhm.
or make a comment, that's all.
Right,
Done.
right, very good.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.